Check. Yo, what is good, folks? It's your boy Sports PSP. Hope everyone's enjoying a fantastic evening. Welcome to another episode of the Sports PSP podcast, a podcast in which we discuss sports, some music, entertainment, a lot of things to go on. Got my man, Undisputed World Champ. Please go follow, like, and subscribe to his content, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Did a great pod last night in which I was on. How you doing, my man?
Man, it's great to share the stage with you again, man. Had a great time last night on the Undisputed GOAT podcast, but now it's time to do the highlight of Friday nights, man. So thankful to be on here every single week, man. Like I said, I call your show the highlight of Friday night for a reason, man. Always something to
Always
look forward to.
Always a pleasure, man, and I will give you credit for coining the term because again, you were the one who came up with that one, man. Always appreciate having you on. Also go shout out to a lot of other great content creators as well. Luis, Brandon from the block, Mario knows best, Casual. Go check out and like and subscribe to their content, man. They put out great content, and of course, Hot Take Kenny as well.
Yes, indeed.
Champ, let's talk about the NBA Finals, man. Even though Dallas is up right now, it's 3-0. Boston is up 3-0. Porzingis is I don't think Porzingis is playing in this game right now. Did they rule him out or they going to wait until game 5 because I haven't heard.
I think they're going to wait until game 5. I haven't seen him on the court as of yet.
Right, so he's not going to play. But is this series over?
I mean, if the Mavs win tonight, it'll be just to save face. You know, just so they won't have to, just so they can't be able to say they got swept. You know, it'll be a gentleman's sweep. I don't think that right now the Mavs have enough in order to come back. It seems like in a lot of cases, this series, it felt like Luka was out there by himself a little bit. It just seems like the same song, different verse at times. Now, granted, Kyrie had some moments, but it kind of seemed like it was Luka versus the Boston Celtics, not the Mavericks versus the Boston Celtics. And when you think about and the Boston Celtics set the tone at the beginning of the series, Porzingis went off game 1.
He did.
I mean, went off. I mean, and when you saw that series, because everybody was talking about, including myself, was talking about this matchup between, you know, one of the best backcourts we've ever seen versus, you know, the Celtics that was a mainstay, a flagship franchise in the NBA history. We all saw that. It was, you know, Kyrie coming back to play his own team with Luka, and, you know, it was going to be a great matchup. No, it was a mismatch for the ages. It was a mismatch for the ages. And Boston is deep. They're good defensively. They're good at rim protection, especially when Porzingis is playing. And not to mention, man, I know the Milwaukee Bucks are missing Jrue Holiday right about now because there's a big possibility that he can be Finals MVP at this point in time. So this series, like I said, even if the Mavericks win tonight, I don't see them doing what LeBron and Kyrie and Kevin Love did back in 2000 and I think it was 2016. I don't
when
see
they
them,
came back from a 3-1 deficit.
Yeah, I don't see them really winning 4 in a row. But if that was to happen, a whole storm is going to come down right upon the head
Boston, they're going to lose
Tatum.
it. They're going to lose
right upon
it.
the head upon Jason Tatum and the Boston Celtics. If they let that happen, because the ball's on their court at this point in time, you know.
I feel like the pressure's on them.
I mean, the pressure's on. I mean, you got to close them out. And, you know, either you got to close them out tonight or you got to close them out when you get back to the parquet at the Boston Garden. I know they don't play in the Boston Garden anymore, but I still call it the Boston Garden. But
I think it's now
you
TD
have to close
Garden.
them out. Yeah, it's TD Garden now.
Yeah.
TD Bank Garden.
TD Bank Garden, okay. Yeah.
You have to close them out. You cannot let them linger around. And you have to do something because, hey, like my father told me, the worst thing you can do is play around with someone with nothing to lose. And right now, the Dallas Mavericks, they really have nothing to lose at this point. They have nothing to lose. It's like they have much to gain and nothing to lose. So if they come back and if they come back and even force a game 7, you know what storm is going to follow. I mean, make no mistake, but I don't see it really happening. I think the coaching of the Boston Celtics, he's going to have them closing on out as well. So I don't really see nothing miraculous going on. Plus, you got to think about it, man. That was a LeBron team. The leader of this team right now, he's relatively young in Luka. He was a hell of a lot younger than LeBron. He's not been. This is his first time. He hasn't been there as of yet. Although he has Kyrie, who's experienced at this point in time, I don't think they have the wherewithal in order to combat a Boston team who's already been to the finals a couple of years ago, who has that experience and is ready to take that leap. But, it's going to be interesting to see, especially if they can pull off, let's say, 2 in a row, especially on the road, because they got to go back to Boston.
Look, man, Boston, they can't choke this one. If they blow this series, I don't know how they going to recover, because if the finals ended today, Jaylen Brown would be the finals MVP, and he's played fantastic. Jason Tatum, they'll bring up the shooting percentage, but that doesn't make him a complete liability. He's making up for it with the defense. He's making up for it with the rebounding, and he's making up for it with the passing. Derek White and Jrue Holiday have been playing well. Big Al Horford, 38 years old, still giving you quality production, still showing people I could still hang, I could still be around in the NBA. What did you also think of what Brian Windhorst? Did you hear what Brian Windhorst of ESPN had to say about Luka Doncic, about the complaining or something about the referees, complaining about the referees, the fouls and stuff like that?
Yes, and I didn't really think nothing of Luka. Look, people forget, man. We've seen every superstar player complain to the ref. Hell, we saw James Worthy in the 1989 playoffs. It was the 1989 playoffs in the NBA Finals, where Rick Mahorn was messing with him so bad that he yelled at the referee. So this is nothing new. We've seen this before. What I hate about some of these commentators, and content creators, guys who are in our lane, is that they act like we've never seen this before from a superstar player. We've seen Michael Jordan complain to the refs, not just to the refs, but in the press as well. Remember when he said that he thought that Rick Mahorn tried to end his career in 1988, right as the Bad Boy Pistons were in Sydney. So we've seen star players complain to the refs about ticky-tack fouls that were not necessarily called, or about certain calls that they just wasn't getting going on in their favor. So, I mean, I don't really think nothing of Luka Doncic as a superstar complaining to the ref about certain foul calls. I mean, we've seen him do it before. We're not going to see this is not the first time. It's not going to be the last time. Not to mention, like I said, we've seen bigger superstars, mainly Michael Jordan, and even LeBron James say, "Hey, man, they were doing all of this. Why are you letting this going on?" We've seen players complain to ref before. Let's not kid ourselves. We've seen this before. He's a superstar. He's going to want to get the call. Superstars want superstar calls. And if you haven't seen it before, remember Michael Jordan went to the ref and told him about a certain foul, and the ref told him, "Well, I didn't see it, Mike," but he called the foul and said, "I didn't see it, but I believe you." Yeah, we've seen guys do that before. So, I mean, no big deal. I mean, I think the press is trying to create stories where they don't belong. And, that's a non-story at this point in time. Superstars are going to complain to the refs every single day.
Right. What do you make of also Luka in terms of the defense? People are talking about how he's not getting back on defense. He's not doing enough on the defensive part. He's giving you what he can offensively, but not on the defensive part.
Okay. People are going to sit here and complain about his defense. Has he ever been a defensive type of player?
Never was.
Never was. It's not like it'll be different if you had a guy like a Gary Payton not giving you his all on the defensive side. It'll be different if you had a guy like a Jason Kidd not giving you his all on the defensive side. It'll be different if you had a small forward like another guard like a DJ Johnson from the Boston Celtics not giving you a lot defensively. Luka has always been compared to two people offensively, and that is James Harden and that is Larry Bird. Guess what? He hasn't given you a lot of offensive help, a lot of defensive help, excuse me, since he's been in the league. He's never been known as that defensive stopper that you need going on down the stretch. So why are you asking him to be that defensive stopper now? It's kind of like asking Dennis Rodman to put up 15 points. Is he really going? Are you really going to ask Dennis Rodman to do that? No, you're not. So people are, like I said, people are making stories, are making non-stories out of stories. Luka has never been a defensive stopper. He's never been a defensive type of player. We know him for his offense. We know him for getting triple doubles. We know him for making plays. We know him for scoring a lot of points. We know him for being that dynamic offensive player. We don't know him for being a defensive stopper. So guess what? Let's not act like in the finals that we're supposed to see him all of a sudden become Gary Payton or Jason Kidd.
Right. Especially something that he was never known for being in terms of a defender. But I gotta give love to my man BRF Sports in the building. He just hopped on to the pod, man. How you doing, brother?
Doing pretty good. Been a hot ass day today, I must say. Hit like mid high 90s down here. But man, hey, I can't complain. It's been a good day.
Y'all hit the 90s. Y'all hit the 90s in Madison today,
Bro. We about hit 100.
Really? We had
Yes.
88 degrees down here in Columbus. We had 88
Bro.
degrees.
Bro,
Yeah,
at one point I was riding home. I got off of work a little after 5. Outside temperature in the truck was like 98.
Wow, man.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That was nasty.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
make sure you hydrated. Make sure you hydrate.
So most definitely that. Most definitely that. But all is good though. Can't complain down this way.
BRF, man, what's your thoughts so far with the finals between the Celtics and the Mavs? Do you think that the finals is over?
Well, I haven't caught a glimpse, but I've been kind of keeping track of game 4 so far, and the Mavericks are putting up a pretty decent fight. I think they were winning last check.
They're up 18 right now.
They really need to. They need to keep the foot on the gas if they got any shot of, I feel like Boston's one of those teams where it's like you have to, like, when you have your foot on their throat, you gotta go ahead and press down. Otherwise, they're gonna find a way because they're still a deeper team. They're still a better team. It's just a matter of can Dallas's depth kind of carry them through this game. I don't think it matters what happens tonight if Dallas wins the series. Dallas wins this game, however, it goes back to Boston. I think it's over. I think Boston is just like I talked about last night. Boston has been able to attack Dallas's weaknesses with their depth the way the Minnesota Timberwolves couldn't with their depth. Because I still feel like Minnesota was a deeper team than Dallas. The problem with Minnesota was they weren't scoring, and where Anthony Edwards might get his. Cat struggled in that series, and Rudy Gobert is going to be like this offensive force for you because he what he is. He's a guy that he'll get you dunks, he'll get you lobs, and that's about it. Boston's been able to attack Dallas, particularly like the perimeter. That game 1, Kristaps Porzingis. I felt like Boston would win this series in 5 if they got a healthy KP and they got an effective KP. But I think what's doing it is Boston's just deeper the way they've still been able to build this 3-0 lead. The defense has been phenomenal. If Boston wins this championship with Drew Holiday being an effective force on the defensive end, he could put himself down as one of the greater defensive players from the perimeter we've seen in this league. He has going back to that series against, like when he was with the Bucks, going back to that finals against Phoenix and the effectiveness he was offensively and defensively. That whole finals run, that whole playoff run for Milwaukee, Drew Holiday is like kind of building a little legacy for himself. And I'm like, I've always been a fan of Drew, so he's putting together a little legacy for himself. I just think Boston's just I just think they're too deep. Like, even though Dallas is up right now, it wouldn't shock me if Boston made a run just because I just feel like they're the better team. Even if Dallas wins this game, I think Boston puts them out 5 games. If Dallas wins tonight, I think they go back game 5 in Boston. I think Boston puts them out. I just think they're too deep for them.
Hmm. Before we get into the gridiron, I do think it's important for me to bring up um, sad news, unfortunately, for the NBA community. It's reported, it's well known, the death of the Jerry West. Such a great basketball player, pioneer for the NBA, NBA champion, NBA Finals MVP, 14-time NBA All-Star, All-Star Game MVP, 10-time All NBA First Team, 2-time All NBA Second Team, former scoring champion, assist leader, and of course, as an executive, an 8-time NBA champion and a 2-time NBA Executive of the Year. Fellas, before we move into the gridiron, any comments on Jerry West and what he meant to the NBA and basketball in general?
Um, First and foremost, man, look, everyone who knows me knows that I'm a diehard Laker fan. And hey, man, his impact on not only, on the Lakers can't be understated. You know, he was a guy that, traded for the great Kobe Bryant, a guy that, got Shaq, that got Shaq to come to the Los Angeles Lakers back in 1996, a guy who drafted an Eddie Jones, a guy who drafted a Nick Van Exel, a guy who drafted a Lottie Divac. You name some of the Laker greats in the 90s, and right before he left in the early 2000s, you name them, Jerry West probably founded them. Not to mention, if you look back on the 80s, if you think about AC Green, when you think about James Worthy, so he was an architecture for not one but two dynasties with the Lakers. Not to mention, man, remember the big Kevin Love, Klay Thompson trade that was supposed to happen. And I never forget that trade when it was supposed to happen. He personally told the Golden State Warriors, hey, you trade Klay Thompson, I'm resigning. And Klay Thompson never got traded. And think about the trajectory that would have put not only the Minnesota Timberwolves on, but the Golden State Warriors on if that would have happened. That would have completely put those two teams in completely different directions. And who knows how many championships that LeBron would have had. So he changed history for not only one, but two teams. Three of the best dynasties of all time are courtesy of Jerry West. The 80s Lakers, the 2000s Lakers, and the Golden State Warriors were arguably the two greatest shooters of all time. Not to mention, part of one of the greatest teams of all time in the Los Angeles Lakers in 1972 when they won 36 straight games. They call him Mr. Clutch for a reason. And for people who say that he played plumbers, I challenge you to go back and look at how he played. I challenge you to go back and look at how he played. And remember something always. They didn't have, the older guys back in the day did not have the resources that we have today. There was no internet. There was no training program. They was literally going out running to do their conditioning and doing push-ups and jacking up 300 shots a day in order to keep their crisp, while also working a full-time job in the offseason, because a lot of them couldn't afford to be full-time basketball players. I'm not so sure that was the case with Jerry West because he was a high-profile player. But the thing is, for those who discredit guys like Jerry West, like guys like Bill Russell, Elgin Baylor, Gail Goodrich, for guys who discredit those guys who helped pave the way for the game that we're seeing today, shame on you, because they did not have the resources that we do today. And I guarantee you, if they did, they would be even greater players than they was back in their day, because then you would have all the resources. Sometimes it's not that you were not as great as these players that they are today. You didn't have the resources that they did. They didn't have nutritionists back then. They didn't have strength and conditioning coaches back then. It was pretty much running suicides, doing up downs, doing push-ups, And guess what? You're trying to keep your shot crisp. I mean, you got to think about how tough those guys was back in the day. Hey, Jerry West, arguably the guts. People talk about gutsiest performances in finals history. Jerry West has to go up the top. He tore his hamstring in the NBA finals, and they injected him with Novocaine in order to keep him on the floor. Let me say that again. They injected him with Novocaine. And if you don't know what Novocaine is, that's what they put in your teeth in order to numb you out before they snatch your tooth out. So for you to play on a bad hamstring with Novocaine, and during the press conference, they had to carry him up the stairs to the press conference when they lost the finals. But still an impressive performance. I mean, still to this day, the only player from a losing team to ever win finals MVP. My hat goes off to Jerry West, not only as a Laker, but a contributor to the NBA game as a whole, because without Jerry West, we wouldn't see these dynasties that we were today, and we wouldn't see some of the Laker greats that we see today. So my hat's off. Rest in peace to the late great one. You will be missed.
BRF?
You can make a case, You can make a case that Jerry West is one of the 5 greatest contributors to the game in the history of the sport. You can legit make a case, not just for what he did on the court, but like Champ was talking about, as good as he was as an executive, as a consultant. I mean, not just those dynasty with the Lakers, but what he did with the Memphis Grizzlies. Even though he didn't win a championship, but even though he didn't win a championship in Memphis, making them relevant and making them a force in the Western Conference, and then going and helping with Golden State, kind of being a consultant, kind of helping them behind the scenes, helping build those teams with Golden State. I mean, the man is one of the greatest executives in the history of the NBA. If he's not the greatest, I mean, and what people don't understand is a lot of the things you see, like the skill sets and like a lot of the moves you see players do today, particularly the guards, who they think they got it from. I mean, Jerry West, out there crossing people up, doing runners. I mean, his ability to shoot the ball from outside. I mean, a lot of these players built their game, stole from Jerry West, like built their game around his skill set. A lot of these guards really did so. And so it's just he's easily one of the greatest contributors, one of the most influential people in the history of the NBA. And it's funny, Champ brought up Vlade Divac. I don't know if you saw IG, but there's an interesting story that they posted about Vlade Divac. Okay, so when Vlade Divac was about to get drafted, it's funny. Jerry West told Vlade Divac, I want you to smoke as many cigarettes as you can. I want you to smoke as many cigarettes as you can, because it's going to drop your value. It's going to drop you down. And then the stories came out. Well, not just stories came out, but they saw him, and it dropped his value. So LA ultimately drafted him 26th in that draft. Vlade Divac ultimately was the catalyst for the Kobe Bryant trade. So imagine if Jerry West didn't do that with Vlade Divac to bring him in, which ultimately a few years down the road to him getting Kobe Bryant. Jerry West is one of the greatest minds in the history of the sport. Prayers and condolences to his family. Condolences to the NBA. I mean, the man, I know there was a talk one time about, is it time to update the logo? I don't think you do after this. His legacy is written. He deserves to stay as the logo of the NBA. I mean, his contributions, I think, way too much for what he's done for the NBA for you to ever change that logo. That logo forever deserves and should stay in the form of Jerry West. So prayers and condolences to his family.
I'm reading a statement here from the great Irvin Magic Johnson. This is what he posted on his X account, formerly known as Twitter. I met Jerry West for the first time in 1979 at the Forum, where he introduced me to Bill Sharman, Chick Hearn, and then the Laker owner Jack Kent Cooke. My father, agent, and I negotiated over lunch. Then Jerry took me to the locker room to show me my Lakers jersey. I started to cry, and Jerry explained to me the expectation of wearing the purple and gold, how he saw my role, and how he envisioned me fitting into the organization. I'll never forget that moment. When training camp began, he gave me so many golden nuggets and really critiqued every facet of my game. After every practice, he would give me notes on how I could get better, and those sessions carried over to the regular season. Once a week, we went over what I needed to improve and how I could dominate in the league. Those meetings meant everything to me because I learned so much from him. We had a basketball camp in Hawaii called the Jerry West Magic Johnson Fantasy Camp for 20 years. At the camp, we shared every meal together, and that's when we really bonded and solidified our great friendship outside of the Lakers. Jerry West was more than a general manager, he was a great friend and confidant. He was there in my highest moments, winning 5 NBA championships, and in my lowest moment when I announced my HIV diagnosis and we cried together for hours in his office. Every time I achieved a goal or crossed a milestone, one of the first calls I received was from Jerry West. When I started my business, was inducted into the Naismith Hall of Fame, was named Lakers president of basketball operations, he would always pick up the phone and give me a personalized call to congratulate me. Beyond his basketball accolades as a basketball player and NBA executive, Jerry West was a great man, a leader of men, fiercely loved his family and friends, and despite holding jobs with other franchises, he was a Lakers fan for life. Lakers Nation, the only reason we have 17 NBA championships is because of Jerry West and his expertise drafting players, trading players, and hiring the right coaches. Today is a sad day for basketball fans and sports fans across the globe. Cookie and I are just devastated and continue to lift up his beautiful wife Karen, sons David, Mark, Michael, Ryan, and Johnny, extended family, and loved ones in prayer. That was a statement from Irvin Magic Johnson on his X account. And before we start into Gridiron, I think it's also important that we should have a moment of silence real quick. Thank you. So, fellas, let's talk about the Gridiron. Aaron Rodgers. What's y'all thoughts about him missing a mandatory minicamp? Because Champ and I, we've been going back and forth on the phone, man. I thought this was supposed to be the perfect ideal situation for Aaron Rodgers. He's no longer with Green Bay. He's in New York. He loves it there. He loves the market there. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers, we know him more than just a football player. We know for other things outside of football. Aaron Rodgers last year coming off the ruptured Achilles, and we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. I think this is a bad look, Champ, and BRF, for him to be missing mandatory minicamp. And the reason why it's a bad look is because he's becoming more and more like his predecessor, Brett Favre. Remember how Brett Favre, how he acted his last couple of years in Green Bay, where he couldn't make up his mind whether he wanted to play or retire. And then remember when Aaron Rodgers was there, he's like, it's not my job to like help him or mentor him. And I think with Aaron, you're 40 years old. You're coming off a ruptured Achilles. You are historically one of the greatest quarterbacks in history. I have him top 5. You're in a new season in New York. The expectations for you is to not only make the playoffs but to compete in the AFC. They want to see you go up against Patrick Mahomes, CJ Stroud, Lamar Jackson. And the fact that you are missing mandatory minicamp, I think that is counterproductive. Because again, you should be spending as much time as you can to build some chemistry or camaraderie with the players. including the newer players, whether from draft or free agency. And I just think this is a terrible look for Aaron Rodgers. And I think that the pressure is going to be on him for him to step up. And Green Bay, they are looking more than good because they have Jordan Love, who's 25 years old. He'll be 26, I think, in September. They have a future with this young guy who I've said will be in the discussion for the MVP. I do believe Jordan Love will be in the discussion for the MVP. I do see him making the Pro Bowl this season. Green Bay has won this one because they finally moved on from Aaron Rodgers. Regardless of his greatness, regardless of what he's done in Green Bay, they have something to look forward to now with Love. Green Bay is one of the teams to compete in the NFC. All this talk about Philadelphia, rightfully so. San Francisco, rightfully so. Detroit, rightfully so. Let's not count out Green Bay. And with their young roster, assuming if Christian Watson can stay healthy. Now you got Josh Jacobs. Although I hate to see Aaron Jones gone, and now he's in Minnesota, but Josh Jacobs still. And with Jordan Love at the quarterback, and with Matt LaFleur, who has proven he's a good enough head coach as far as with a play caller, I think Green Bay can make some noise. And I think for Aaron, this is a really bad look, man. And I think it just goes to show you that you can't win with someone like him. And when I was watching Tom Brady, when on the Patriots Hall of Fame induction of him, rightfully so, happy for him. Tom Brady talks about how much it takes, the sacrifices, the amount of work to put in. And I just don't know what I just don't think Aaron Rodgers is willing to sacrifice for the team. And I can't blame Green Bay. I can't feel sorry for New York because they knew exactly what they signed themselves into by getting Aaron Rodgers. I think this is a bad look right here. And I'm reading an article from CNN's, I think it's from, I just want to make sure, by Ben Morse of CNN. According to Spotrac, Rodgers' 2024 cap hit will be just over $17 million, with over $3 million base salary, a $7 million signing bonus, and a $7 million play option. And according to the NFL CBA, which is the collective bargaining agreement, players who miss the first day of mandatory minicamp with an unexcused reason can be subjected to nearly a $17,000 fine. Missing a second day comes with nearly $34,000 fine for the second day fine and over $50,000, $50,855 for a third day. So, what are your thoughts about Aaron Rodgers? Is this who he is as far as a leader, as a teammate? And can they win a championship, New York, with him as the guy? In my opinion, I just don't see at this point. Given the injury that he's coming off from and what he's doing right now, I just think it's counterproductive. So whoever wants to go first.
With Aaron Rodgers, people often compared him to Tom Brady during this era. And the difference between him and Tom Brady was this. Tom Brady was willing to do things for his team and his teammates that nobody else was willing to do. And the thing is, if you really want to look at the biggest difference, Tom Brady was the quarterback and everybody knew who he was, but he was also one of the guys. He knew the guys on the practice squad. He knew the guys in the equipment rooms. He knew the guys that were last on the depth chart at wide receiver. He knew the fifth wide receiver. He had chemistry with all of his guys. And that's the biggest difference between him and Aaron Rodgers. There's an old saying, be careful who you judge because you have a bad habit of becoming what you despise. I'll say that again, be careful who you judge because you have a bad habit of coming with what you despise. And right now, remember how badly, he used to talk about, never used to talk about Brett Favre, but everybody remembers the innuendos and things of that nature. But the thing is, you ended up becoming what you despise. And ironically, you get traded to the Jets. Ironically, you get traded to the Jets. The thing is this. I don't think that Aaron Rodgers understands the magnitude of possibly winning a Super Bowl with the Jets. This is a franchise that has never won an AFC championship. Never. They haven't won a Super Bowl since Joe Namath. Hell, they haven't even had a true franchise quarterback since Joe Namath. So I don't think he understands the significance of winning in New York for a team like the New York Jets. I don't think he understands. I don't think he understands how much this would add to his legacy. Becoming one of the few quarterbacks that won with two different teams. I don't think he understands that. And I don't think he understands the talent pool that you have here. You have some of the most, this is the best talent. You know, you have a hell of a defense. You have offensive weapons galore. They went out there and they got you offensive line and Tyron Smith and Olu Fashanu. You know, you have Breece Hall. You have a cornucopia of things going in your favor. Why would you ruin that by not showing up to training camp? Out of every quarterback that we say had the most to lose, Aaron Rodgers is right up there. Can you win outside the structure of Green Bay? Are you really as flaky as people say you are? Because if you remember correctly, there was a lot of comparison between him and Kyrie.
Yeah.
Especially during COVID. But look what Kyrie is doing now versus Aaron Rodgers, still doing the same things that he was doing in Green Bay. Still going, I mean, to the point now where you can't go on your homeboy show, Pat McAfee's show. Always criticizing other people because of certain things they may or may not have did as far as during the pandemic was concerned. Talking about people who don't even pay you any mind and Travis Kelce. So the thing is this. When you look at Kyrie and what transpired in his career during the COVID years, you know, 2020 to 2023, he has came out and redeemed himself in a lot of aspects of the game, to the point where they was calling him and his new teammate Luka Doncic one of the best backcourts, the most talented backcourts in NBA history. What have you done to redeem yourself, to improve your reputation, other than being in the media? You're all in the media while you're injured. If this was any other quarterback, would he be getting a pass for that? If Lamar Jackson was hurt and he was still going on Pat McAfee's show talking about Jimmy Kimmel and Travis Kelce, would he get a pass for that? Probably not. Would Josh Allen get a pass for that? Probably not. Would Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes? Probably not. So he gets passes where it's not warranted. You should be with your teammates, giving them encouragement, not all over the media throwing dirt on people's names when you should be focused on getting another Super Bowl. And one has to ask themselves this: is this really about you going to a new team, or your failure to want to change partners rather than change yourself? Because it's kind of like a relationship. Some people are so focused and headstrong in their mind, and so much of legends in their own mind, that they rather change partners than to change themselves. You have the model franchise in Green Bay, the model franchise. It's called Title Town for a reason. You give all of that up to go to New York, rightfully so. Hey, you still feel you can play a few more years. But when you get there, what do you do when you get there? You're still doing the same things that you did when you were in Green Bay. Still flaky, still talking out of turn in the media, still out here just wild. Now you're not showing up to mandatory camp when these rookies, some of these young players, need your mentorship. Not just the backup quarterbacks. And I think people need to understand that. You need to build chemistry with these receivers, with these running backs. Fill out how good your offensive line is so you can feel what's around you. You haven't been with these offensive line for the last 2 to 3 years. You don't have a rapport with Olu Fashanu. You don't have a rapport with Tyron Smith.
Right. And
They just
got
drafted.
in.
Yeah. And not to mention, they just brought in a new receiver in Mike Williams and traded for him. You don't have a rapport with him. So guess what? While you're in the media running your mouth about people in their about certain people in the media, while you're missing training camp, while you're doing all that, you're falling behind. You really think you're ahead of everybody, but everybody's really telling you to catch up, because the thing is this: there's no guarantee with all of this talent you're going to win that division.
Yeah.
Josh Allen and that Buffalo Bills team has revamped. Tua's still in that division, and they have a hell of a team. They have a hell of an offensive onslaught. Not to mention, if you look down south in the AFC South, there's some dogs at quarterback down there. When you think about C.J. Stroud, when you think about Will Levis, when you think about what's the other quarterback name?
Anthony Richardson.
When you think about Anthony Richardson, these young quarterbacks are hungry. These guys are hungry. So this is not a division where you just have a free path to the. No, you got to go through some dogs. So that's the biggest difference between, and that will forever be the difference between him and Tom Brady. You didn't hear Tom Brady talking crap in the media about other people, talking about comedians and late night talk show hosts and Jimmy Kimmel and all of that. His sole purpose was to win Super Bowls. He took pay cuts. You never heard about Tom Brady all in the media. The most you ever heard about him being in the media was when those scandals happened with Spygate and Deflategate. That was it. And even then, that was related to football.
Right.
But for you to be all the time in the media in things unrelated to football, missing out on training camps, you have to ask yourself, if he was any other quarterback, would he be getting away with it? If Josh Allen would did that, it'd be all over the news right now. Call it like we see it. Because the thing is, you're supposed to be an all-time great mentor in these young talents. And I'm surprised the Jets didn't see the writing on the wall this year and go for a Spencer Rattler in the 5th round. You saw how he acted in Green Bay. So you couldn't see the writing on the wall, and you got to take into consideration his age. You couldn't see the writing on the wall and say, hey, let's bring in a Spencer Rattler, a gunslinger, just in case he goes out, just in case he starts acting a fool again. So the thing is, man, look, Aaron Rodgers, get into camp, get with these young guys, because you have a chance to do something that hasn't happened in New York since Joe Namath, since the I Guarantee You game. And you have a chance to do something special that only I think Tom Brady has done, and that's win 2 Super Bowls. That's win a Super Bowl with 2 different teams. And to win in a place as special as New York, on the New York Jets, that has been a snake-bitten franchise for years to come, will be something special. And you're not only ruining it for yourself, you're ruining it for all of these young players that they have brought in to accompany you on this journey. So you not showing up to camp is not only a slap in the face to that organization, it's a slap in the face to these young players who are depending on you. So do the right thing.
BRF.
Yes, sir. I mean, the problem with the whole situation is I don't think Aaron Rodgers really cares. He feels like at the end of the day, he probably feels like he's back from the injury. He just feels like he's gonna go out there and slinging and do what he does. But I mean, it doesn't surprise me. A team like the Jets would kind of give him this leeway, because would it surprise me if they didn't find him at all just for the simple fact that he's Aaron Rodgers? Absolutely not. It wouldn't surprise me at all. These are the New York Jets we're talking about. They're not exactly the smartest organization in the National Football League, so it wouldn't surprise me at all. But they actually had a decent offseason. You go get a Tyron Smith. You go draft arguably the best offensive tackle in the draft in Olu Fashanu. You still have Breece Hall behind you. You have Garrett Wilson on one side. You go out and acquire a Mike Williams from the LA Chargers. Go out and you get him, and then you got all these dogs on defense. You got Sauce Gardner, who's arguably the best corner in football. You got depth galore on the defensive line, and particularly your pass rush. I mean, the stars are kind of aligning for the New York Jets to do something this year. If I'm Aaron Rodgers, okay, I'm a veteran. I get it. You know, I have an established name in this sport. Why not go out there? Just get out there, introduce yourself to the guys, kind of build a little chemistry there, show them that you're in this for the right reasons, and not just because you knew the Jets were going to pay you because they were desperate for a quarterback. Show that you're here for the right thing. Show that you actually want to lead these boys and come out here and try to win the division. Because even though you do have Buffalo, you do have Miami, the division is winnable. It's winnable for you. I mean, you're not fearing Buffalo maybe like you have the past couple of years. You're definitely not fearing Miami because for all the offense in the world, the defense is mid. So you're not scared of Miami. So I mean, you actually have a shot to do something because you might be the most balanced team in that division when you consider the offensive talent you have and that defense you're bringing back from last year. So I don't like it. I don't like it myself either, just for the standpoint that if this man goes out, wins a Super Bowl championship for the New York Jets, he's immortalized. He's forever when it comes to that city. That city would treat him like a god from now until the day he died if he won a championship for the New York Jets. But he's doing it to himself by not going. I mean, he's hurting. He's hurting opportunity to build rapport. He's hurting an opportunity to really get out there and see what these guys can do. I mean, come on, man. I mean, you can't sit here and tell me fans out there, Aaron Rodgers with a young beast like a Garrett Wilson. Can't nobody tell me you don't want to see that connection on Sundays. I mean, that's one of the exciting combos I've been wanting to see since he went to the Jets, and I hated I didn't get to see it last year because his season lasted all a good 3-4 minutes. So I just feel like he should have. I understand you're a veteran. You know what I'm saying? When some veteran, a lot of veterans kind of, they have a little say so they can get away with stuff. I feel like he could have really cemented himself for his teammates, for the entire organization, for the fans in New York. If he had gone out to this mini camp and really kind of helped set the tone as say for what it's worth, Aaron Rodgers right now is the face of this franchise. If he comes out there and he sets a tone early, you get everybody in line, you get everybody fired up early, and who knows where it goes. But with this going on, I mean, this does them no good. I feel like New York is a team that can get into the playoffs this year with what they have. But I mean, you got to get there and you got to start working with your guys in order to get it done. So hopefully he doesn't take a whole bunch of time off. He gets up there and kind of builds some chemistry with these guys. But does it surprise me because Aaron Rodgers? To be honest, absolutely not. It doesn't surprise me at all. But we'll just see where it goes from here. I just hope he gets out there and understands the talent that he does have with the Jets, but the pressure he's about to face. So he needs to go out there and kind of change some impressions about how people feel about him. Get out to that camp and lead by example and not just going on Pat McAfee's show and spitting all types of garbage just because it's good for clicks. You know what I mean? So get out to the camp and work with these boys and show them why a lot of these guys grew up wanting to play with you, just loving you as a quarterback. Do better. That's just how I feel.
I'm reading a comment here. Appreciate my boy Aquarius Williams. Rodgers wanted the team to get rid of distractions, but keeps being the biggest distraction for the team. Very hypocritical. Our boy Grant in the building. He's saying Boston is getting cooked. Don't worry about that, Grant. You'll be fine in Game 5. But more on Aaron Rodgers. I think, look, at the end of the day, man, this is bad on the part of Aaron Rodgers. He's just becoming more in what he is. And champ, Greg Jennings, Jermichael Finley, Donald Driver, they've been outspoken against Aaron Rodgers. And they were ignored because of course it's Aaron Rodgers. But now seeing what you're seeing with Aaron Rodgers over the years, perhaps what they said about Aaron Rodgers was true, and we have to give them the respect and credence they deserve because they've played with him. They've seen him in the locker room. They see how the way he is during practices or OTAs, training camps, mini camps, how they played with him. And when I look at Aaron, man, it's just a really bad look, and it hurts the younger players. And I think the Jets right now, if they had a competent young quarterback, whether in the draft or in free agency, a draft or whoever, they could compete. Heck, if you put Russell Wilson with the Jets, I think they would actually compete. If you give Russ a short 1-year deal, the exact contract like with the Steelers, you don't think Russell Wilson could actually do something? Not saying that Russell Wilson is a better quarterback than Aaron Rodgers, but with Aaron, man, it seems like you just loving the celebrity, because of course it is New York. Because of course I've seen you on podcasts, I've seen you with interviews with Tucker Carlson, I've seen you with a lot of other things that you've been doing, man, and that's fine. But you're not paying attention to the ultimate goal, which is winning a championship. We don't know how long since the last time the New York Jets have won a Super Bowl, or even before the Super Bowl era. And when Aaron, it just really looks bad, man. You have an embarrassment of riches. As y'all mentioned, Breece Hall, Mike Williams, Garrett Wilson, the offensive linemen. You're taking time off for an unexcused, let me repeat, an unexcused reason. Now, if he was dealing with personal problems, mental health problems, all of us, I think I can speak on behalf of all of us, if he's dealing with something mentally or physically, hey, we totally understand.
Yes.
But if it's for an inexcused reason, I don't understand. And plus, you haven't played. The last time we saw you play was the season opener last year, in which you were hurt. And you're 40 years old, coming off a ruptured Achilles. Are you sure you're gonna be the same old Aaron Rodgers? Are you sure you're still gonna be that type of quarterback? This is on the Jets because they knew exactly what they were getting themselves into. For them to, if they claim that they didn't, then that I'm calling that baloney or bull, because they knew exactly what they were getting themselves into with Aaron Rodgers. Moving forward, they're gonna have to get a quarterback in the draft, somebody who is young, who can sit and learn as much as they can. But for Aaron to take the position that he's taking, again, this is an inexcused reason. It says here, I'm just reading it like right here. Aaron and I, this is a comment from Robert Saleh, the head coach of the New York Jets. Aaron and I spoke before OTAs. He's been very good in communication. He's been here the entire time. It's unexcused, but he had an event that was very important to him, which he communicated. And I think with Aaron, man, are you about? It's just telling me it's about him, not about the team. And at the end of the day, Aaron Rodgers only cares about Aaron Rodgers. If this were Tom Brady, if this were any other quarterback with Patrick Mahomes, we know that what the type of sacrifices, we know what they're willing to do in order for them to compete. But for Aaron, this looks bad, bro. Considering the expectations and considering what came into consideration. So, fellas, any final words before we move on to another football topic?
Hey, look out for Jordan Travis, the Florida State Seminole in training camp. Look out for him in training camp.
Yeah.
and because he's going to see some time, and he's a hell of a football player. That Florida State team was on their way to a national championship prior to him getting injured. So look out for him. And Aaron Rodgers, if you really want to look at how to conduct yourself in your last year, look no further than John Elway in his last 2 years with the Denver Broncos. Because if you want to, the organization will give you superstar treatment, because it's been documented that John Elway was the only player that didn't have to do two-a-days at Denver Broncos camps. You see him the first practice, then he's gone for the rest of the day. So if you want that superstar treatment, of course, they'll abide it to you. We've seen it obliged to many players. We saw it obliged to John Elway during his last 2 years in Denver. You see him go to one-a-days during the last 2 years of that back-to-back championship run, where you seen him at one practice per day, in the morning meetings, and then you didn't see him during the evening practices. So if you want the superstar treatment, people will more than likely give it to you, because hell, quiet as it's kept, well, loud as it's bitching, you're Aaron Rodgers. Of course, they don't want to use you up throughout training camp and push the limits of that Achilles. I wouldn't want to either if I'm the franchise. So if you want some superstar treatment, come to us and we'll oblige you. Like I said, we've seen it before. But the thing is to come and not have an excused absence when these young players are looking to you. These young players are looking to you, and all of them are talented. You talk about rookie. People talk about the Chicago Bears, and that's no better place for a rookie to be in. Look at what Aaron Rodgers went into. You didn't walk into a situation like a Russell Wilson did where you had to be the savior. They had talent there. They had a hell of a defense. They had defensive players galore. They had hell of a offensive players. Now you have a hell of a stable offensive line. You had a coach you have a hell of a coach that came from a winning culture in the San Francisco 49ers up under Kyle Shanahan. So everything is there for you to shine, but are you willing to take the step for it to happen? That's all I got.
Well said, brother. Let's talk about another quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. Brother got paid 5-year, $275 million, and including $200 million guaranteed, $142 million at signing. And with this contract, an average of $55 million per year, he's with Joe Burrow at $55 million, Jared Goff, $53 million, Justin Herbert, $52.5 million, Lamar Jackson, $52 million, Jalen Hurts, $51 million. Listen, I'll say this again, just to be consistent and adamant. You get as much money according to the market. Trevor Lawrence would be an absolute fool to say no to that type of money, because even though the Jacksonville Jaguars, he probably may be the second best quarterback right now, but that's for a short while, because we got to wait and see on Anthony Richardson, and I believe when healthy he's going to ball out. And let's not lose sight on Will Levis, because he actually showed some things last year. I have no problem with Trevor Lawrence taking the contract. Some people may look at it as a bad thing, because a lot of these quarterbacks nowadays are getting too much money. They're getting too much money based on hype and potential. And I do think coming out of college, out of Clemson, Trevor Lawrence was way too overhyped, especially with the comparisons with Andrew Luck. And I haven't seen that. Now, granted, his first year, he was in a horrendous situation led by none other than Urban Meyer. Second year, he improved, obviously, with Doug Peterson. Coming back from a 27-point deficit against the Los Angeles Chargers, against Justin Herbert at that time, young in his career, third year in the NFL. I thought that Jaguars last year were going to make the playoffs, and they didn't. They had chances, but they came up short. It's not even close. C.J. Stroud is the best quarterback in that division. because of what he's done so far in year one, and he has ascended. We're not. CJ Stroud is clearly right now a top 10 quarterback. I still got to wait for top 5. But at the same time, when I look at Trevor Lawrence, he's mid. I hate to say it, but he's mid. I just don't think he's that type of quarterback. And I think that for Jacksonville, you're going to be stuck because of all these other quarterbacks and all these other teams being better than you, not just in your division, but in your entire conference. I just don't think Trevor Lawrence is going to live up to being the player most draft experts, whether Mel Kiper Jr., Todd McShay, thought he could be. I have no problem with him taking the money. Like I said before, you get as much money according to the market. Some people may look at it as a bad thing because, look, if Trevor Lawrence got his money, imagine with Brock Purdy. Imagine with Tua Tagovailoa getting their money. And plus, champ, I send you a report. Dak Prescott, he could possibly get $60 million per year.
Yes, indeed.
But at the same time, even though that may be a bad thing, that could also be a good thing because Jordan Love, CJ Stroud, other ascending young quarterbacks, they want that type of money. Shit, Daniel Jones got $40 million per year. If Daniel Jones could get $40 million per year, listen, man, you better find a way to pay these quarterbacks. In order for Trevor Lawrence to justify this contract, he needs to have a big-time season, whether 4,000 yards, 30-something touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He has to be at least in the discussion for the MVP or in the discussion as a top 10 quarterback for him to get that type, in order for him to be justified for that type of contract. Because nowadays, it's looking like T-mid, as my man Brandon from the block calls him all the time. So I'm not going to be mad at Trevor Lawrence for taking that contract because, again, he'd be a fool to say otherwise and you get as much money. But I do agree with Champ. We got to stop paying quarterbacks based on hype or potential and just look at the results. Because at the end of the day, it should be about results. It should be about meritocracy. But at the same time, this is where the market is going. This is where all these owners and all these players getting their money. So, Champ, I'm going to let you go, man. What were your thoughts about Trevor Lawrence's contract?
Number one, I will say this. Jacksonville has never been a great franchise outside of the Tom Coughlin years. That's when they was going to the AFC championships where they was consistent. I'm talking about consistently. We all know about the Jacksonville team, but you saw how quick they ascended and how down they went the very next few years. It was only 3 years after that team made it to the AFC championship. It was a threat to the dynasty of the Patriots once they down in the dumps once again. So they have a habit of making a lot of brutal decisions, I will say. Spent the most money in free agency in order to get Trevor Lawrence as much help as they could. But guess what? Look where it went with the Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, guys like that. So a lot of this goes on Jacksonville as well. They've never been a consistent winning culture as a franchise. And I would have to say this. I will be remiss if I say this. People talking about him being the greatest prospect of all time. Well, was he really? The thing is this, you got to think about what Andrew Luck was at. There was no question about it. Andrew Luck was the most talented player, not just the most talented quarterback, but the most talented player on that team. When you look at those Clemson teams, you think about all the talent that was around. Trevor Etienne, T. Higgins, Justin Ross, who, by the way, is from the Columbus, Phoenix City area, by the way. Shout out to Justin Ross, just won a Super Bowl with the Kansas City Chiefs. So you got to think about that defensive line in Colin Farrell, Sexy Dexy, who now plays for the New York Giants. You got to think about Christian Watkins, who now plays for the Black Hole out there in the Oakland Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders. You think about how talented that team was and how much of a great team he had around him. And then comparing him to Andrew Luck, who didn't have as much. So the thing is, and this goes for us as well as content creators, we have to stop creating legends before they happen. We've seen it throughout the NBA playoffs. Best backcourt in NBA history. Look what happened. We saw it with Joker too. Top 5. He's better than Elijah Warren. He's better than Bill Walton. He's better than George Mikan. He's better than Wilt Chamberlain. Look what happened. Anthony Edwards, the next Michael Jordan. Look what happened. And the thing is, nobody in the NFL, I mean nobody, no one position in the NFL gets paid more off potential, not performance, potential, than the quarterback position. Because you're thinking about what they could be rather than what they are. You don't see this happen with wide receivers. You don't see that happen with wide receivers.
Or D-lineman.
You might see a team reach for one in free agency, like the Jacksonville Jaguars did with Christian Kirk. But that just goes to show you how bad of an organization Jacksonville was, because nobody else reaching like that.
Yeah.
You'll never see a wide receiver get paid based off potential of what he can be. You'll never see a running back get a $20 million contract based on the potential that he could be a 2,000-yard rusher. Hell, Derrick Henry was a 2,000-yard rusher and hadn't even reached $30 million on his contract yet. And everybody knew that he was carrying that team to the playoffs and the AFC Championship. And people talk about, well, he won a playoff game. Was that really him, or was that really the dumb coaching of Brandon Staley at a certain point? Ask yourself that. Was that really him and all of his glory and all of his talent finally showing that potential that we finally saw when he was at Clemson? Or was that really Brandon Staley's dumb coaching that he was eventually fired for, by the way?
Do you think he's overrated, champ?
Say again?
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Do you believe Trevor Lawrence is overrated?
I've been saying that he was overrated. Like I said, if you were to pull out central casting, Trevor Lawrence is what you want. 6'6", 235 pounds, mobile in the pocket, has a rocket arm, looks like the prototypical QB. But don't get it confused with what something looks like rather than what it is. He's mid. He's mid. He's not a CJ Stroud. He's not that. How can you let a quarterback who's a rookie come in and steal the division from you, and you was ahead by many a game? You was tied for first place with the Baltimore Ravens at the halfway mark of the season for the number 1 seed. You won one game down the stretch. One game. People are going to say, well, the receivers dropped passes. People are going to talk about injury. But the thing is, even at the end of the season, you had a chance to seal the division and go to the playoffs. You couldn't do it. Now where do you go? What's going to happen if you have another losing season or another lackluster season? You locked in for the next 5 years. There's no free agency help for you now. Thank God. And they're hoping that Brian Thomas from LSU can be that number 1 receiver, because they haven't found one thus far. You still need help on that offensive line. Still questions about that defense as well. So the thing is, you have so many holes on this team, and you're hoping that a lot of these players become what you need them to be in order to put you in playoff contention. But guess what? You're playing a quarterback based on potential alone. Those other quarterbacks that you have in common have the accolades, with the exception of Justin Herbert, I would say, but we'll get to him later. They have the accolades to back up their contracts. Joe Burrow went to a Super Bowl and an AFC championship. First 3 years in the league. Boom. That's the justification to give him a contract. He showed you what he is already. Patrick Mahomes, 2 Super Bowls, AFC championship appearance.
3 Super Bowls.
3 Super Bowls. Contract justified. Before he signed his next contract, before he signed his first big contract after his rookie contract, it was justified because he reached the AFC championship his first year. By his third year, he was facing off against the greatest of all time. Contract justified. Lamar Jackson, 2-time MVP, made it to the AFC championship. Contract justified. And guess what? He did that without a star running back. Remember, J.K. Dobbins was hurt.
Right.
He did this with rookie receivers and a washed Odell Beckham. Didn't even have his favorite target in Mark Andrews, who's an all-pro. Did that by being the center of the offense. Contract justified. Josh Allen made it to the AFC championship. Didn't really get a running game until James Cook got drafted. Pretty much has the highest usage rate last year of any quarterback with 88%. Contract justified. How can you justify a contract in a quarterback in his third year that hasn't gotten past a divisional round of the playoffs? Hasn't won an MVP? Like I said, that playoff game, it was more Brandon Staley's dumb coaching than it was Trevor Lawrence's brilliant play. So the thing is, and Jacksonville is known for giving players contracts based on potential. They gave Blake Bortles a new contract after that AFC championship, knowing that he wasn't worth the salt and the bread. So the thing is this: be smart as a franchise. People are talking about, well, who else are they going to get? Yeah, you got a pretty good quarterback class coming out this year with Quentin Ewers, Shedeur Sanders, not to mention UGA's own Carson Beck.
Yeah.
You
And
have guys coming out.
There's also Drew Allard from Penn State.
Drew Allard from Penn State too. Or if you want to make a phone call to down there in Arizona, get you a Kyler Murray, feel free. But the thing is this: don't be investing too much in a quarterback based on what you think he is when he hasn't showed you what he is already. By the third year, I understand people say, be patient, be patient, be patient. But every last one of those quarterbacks that you have named have shown promise and have shown you who they are by their third year. Lamar Jackson was in the playoffs his first year. Patrick Mahomes in the AFC championship his first year. Joe Burrow was in the Super Bowl his second year after coming off an ACL injury. His second year after coming off an ACL injury. Without an offensive line. You might as well should have had me out there blocking for it because they weren't blocking nothing. So the thing is, all these other quarterbacks, like I said, with the exception of Justin Herbert, and I give him a pass because of the horrible coaching of Brandon Staley and because that franchise has a bad habit of failing their quarterbacks, i.e. Dan Fouts, Phillip Rivers, just to name a few. So with all of those other quarterbacks, contract justified. Accolades, how far they've been in the playoffs justifies the contract. Guess what? You cannot possibly justify a contract for a quarterback who had the biggest collapse arguably in NFL history going down the stretch where you only won one game. You only got one playoff win and one playoff appearance. And your overall career, your career winning percentage, your career wins, well, your career losses, outweigh your career wins. You are 20-30. You are 20-30. How can you justify a contract like that? Did you not learn from the New York Giants with Daniel Jones? I don't think you did. It's going to be interesting to see because this division is loaded down south. Will Levis, C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson with Shane Steichen. Yeah. And even if he doesn't come back, Shane Steichen is a genius.
Look at the job he did with Gardner Minshew.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was getting to. Look at what he did with Gardner Minshew. Damn near made the playoffs. So can you imagine you having a weapon on offense like an Anthony Richardson? I can't wait to see what he's going to be. But the thing is this, you're probably going to end up being the fourth best quarterback in this division, depending on how those other three play. And you're not nowhere near the team that the Houston Texans are. They're stacked.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't forget the Colts too, champ.
Yeah,
they
Colts
did some things in the draft as well too. Let's not Adonis Mitchell, and also that they still got Michael Pittman, Jonathan Taylor still healthy. But champ, let me ask you this question before I let BRF go.
Mm-hmm.
If you're the Jaguars, I think they should have given him a 5th-year option, picked up his 5th-year option before giving him that type of contract. Or people will say, well, you know what? It's the market. It's where it goes. And besides, unless we could find somebody else, unless we find somebody else to replace him, what are we going to do with him?
In the great words of Al Davis, it's not important to be consistent. It's important to be right. Let me say that again. It's not important to be consistent. It's important to be right. Why would you want to be right? Why would you want to be consistent in a state of mediocrity? That's the thing I think that these organizations make mistakes at when it comes to quarterback. And if you want a prime example of that, look at Dallas. What if you get rid of Dak? Who else you going to get? Well, guess what? You haven't been past the damn division round of the playoffs. It can't. I mean, it can get worse, but it damn sure can get a lot better. So why would you want to be consistently in mediocrity? And why would you want to be so over-invested in a mid-level quarterback? I can understand you saying, hey, you know, who else you're going to get outside of a Patrick Mahomes if he has a couple down years? I can understand them saying, what are you going to do out? How much better can you get with a Lamar Jackson? I can understand them saying something like that with a Josh Allen and a Joe Burrow. Like, what else you going to do? Understandable. Those guys are generational talent. They've proven their key. And if they stake it up in the playoffs, you can legitimately ask yourself that question. But they're proven. They're proven talents. They've proven that they can take you as far as you let them.
Right.
But as far as these mid-level quarterbacks, why do we keep asking the question, well, what else are you going to do? Hell, you could do a hell of a lot more better. Late round draft picks at quarterback become great every day. Don't believe that? Look at Tom Brady, the greatest of all time. Look at Joe Montana, second greatest of all time. A lot of low round draft picks have become great quarterbacks. Invest in your scouting department in order to find one. Stop investing in these mid-level quarterbacks simply because they have the potential and they have the look. A look don't pay my bills, and it ain't gonna get you to a Super Bowl. You can look like Ronnie Bass off Remember the Titans all you want to, or you win the championships like it. No, you're not. So guess what? Jacksonville, the entire NFL, stop investing and getting invested in these mid-level quarterbacks. And when they win one playoff game for, let's say, the next 2 to 3 years, you're asking, well, what are you going to do if we get rid of them? Simple. Get rid of them and bring somebody else in. Bring someone else in. Hell, look at what happened with Dallas when they got rid of Tony Romo. Hey, you got a little bit better. You didn't get too much better, but you got a little bit better. Not all is lost just on the side. Not history has proven to us.
Yeah.
Not all is lost just because you don't have a high caliber Dan Marino caliber quarterback. Look at the 2000 Ravens. Look at the 2002 Bucks. Look at a lot of teams throughout NFL history. Hell, look at the Giants in the 80s. Look at the Washington football team, your team in the 80s. Won the Super Bowl with 3 different quarterbacks during that decade with defense, offensive linemen, and great skill position players. You have the NFL as a whole has proven you don't need elite. You need a game manager, elite. You don't need that elite quarterback in order to win Super Bowls. You can have a game manager and win you a Super Bowl. if you build around the person properly. But let's stop getting invested in these mid-level quarterbacks. They only making the playoffs one time in their first 3 to 5 years and saying, what else are you going to do? Well, you can do a hell of a lot worse, but you damn sure can do a hell of a lot better.
All right. I agree with you there. And I also think, to your point, Champ, the organization. Because if we talk about Dallas Cowboys, I've said it before, man, that's on Jerry Jones. Because Jerry Jones won't stay out the way and allow other people to do the job. So again, at some point in time, we really got to stop selling for like mid-tier or less tier play. And the perfect example is the 49ers. They could win a Super Bowl. The only problem is with Kyle Shanahan and his clock management and his coaching decisions from time to time. But you can win a Super Bowl or get to one with a Brock Purdy, with a Jimmy Garoppolo. So it can happen. BRF, what are your thoughts about Trevor Lawrence's deal?
Who? To an extent.
Did you get your card? Huh?
Yeah. To an extent, I understand why they did it, but my God, I mean, $55 million for basically one good year, for basically 1 year where he thought he was coming up and was about to become like this new elite talent at quarterback. I don't know. I wouldn't have done it. I'd have gave him a 5th year option. I mean, see what you have a little more. See him hopefully grow. I mean, he can't. Yeah. Excuse crying in the background. That's my niece.
It's okay.
But I guess if you're coming into the league with someone with the hype like a Trevor Lawrence, you're not always gonna get the whole, well, he's got such and such a wide receiver, he's got this guy, he's got this guy. At some point, you have to be able to galvanize these guys. You have to be able to bring them up with you at some point, and you're not gonna be able to get the excuse of, well, he's got this core wide receivers. You're not gonna keep getting that excuse. Eventually, you're gonna have to be able to. The best quarterbacks are the ones that can take talent that you might not think is great and can elevate them to a level to help you get to where you want to be. And that's ultimately win a division, get to the playoffs, make deep runs, Super Bowl down the line. I mean, the ultimate goal is always the Super Bowl. Trevor Lawrence just hasn't shown me, like, hey, is he talented? Yes. I'm not going to sit here and say he's not talented. He's definitely talented. And he's shown flashes. He's shown flashes of hitting, of kind of scratching the surface on what his ceiling could be. It's just that he hasn't done it enough. And then the last season, just getting off to the start they got off to, and then to just basically fall flat on their face the rest of the season. And then you get rewarded. I mean, I get the market's this and all that, but I mean, in Jackson, I mean, it kind of doesn't matter at this point with Jacksonville. I mean, they kind of stuck with him.
Hey, BRF, Champ will love me for this. In the words of Don King, only in America.
Only in America.
Yes, indeed.
I mean, truer words weren't spoken, because I mean, only in America can you get $275 million going 1-5 your last 6 games. I mean, Jacksonville, do you, man? Do you? That's all I'm gonna say. I mean, y'all stuck with him the next 5 years. He's locked in, but now it's like, how do you go improving your team at this point? You kind of stuck between the rock and the hard place, because if Trevor Lawrence doesn't show up this year and he doesn't play, if he doesn't get you to the playoffs, I don't know where you go from this point. You kind of stuck with it. So I hope Jacksonville know what they're doing, but history kind of shows us, nah.
I think they know exactly what they're doing. which is sticking to consistency, staying exactly where they are. And unfortunately for Trevor Lawrence, on the flip side, you're going to get your money, but at the same time, you are going to have a hard time, not just not only in the division, but alone in the AFC. And you're also going to have to deal with some dogs in the NFC as well, man. But I can't knock them for taking the money because if someone offered us that type of money, we'd be a fool to disregard that. But at the same time, this better work out if you're Jacksonville, because I just don't see it. To Champ's point, the Texans, they're loaded. You know, Tank Dell is, even though they can talk about Stephon Diggs all we want, Tank Dell is showing people, no, I could be a number one wide receiver as well. The Colts, they've done their part. I wouldn't sleep on the Tennessee Titans. And we all know the rest of the AFC. So with Trevor Lawrence, man, but also, like I said, even though this may be a bad thing, because, again, other quarterbacks, mid-tier or less-tier quarterbacks getting their type of money, also, them top-tier quarterbacks, they're like, no, we want the type of money Trevor Lawrence is going to get, and you can't knock them if they can continue the level of play as well as the accolades. But speaking about quarterbacks with money getting paid, I came up which quarterback are you going to trust 2024? Both are paid. Both are veteran quarterbacks. Both are coming off the exact injuries, which is the Achilles. Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins? Which QB you want to go with in 2024?
Woo, man. Let me tell you, PSP, you are something else for this one. You a fool for this one. In great words of Jay-Z.
Also, Mama PSP also helped me came up with that as well. Mama PSP.
Mm-hmm. Hey, man, shout out to Mama PSP, man. Hey, man, look, I don't trust Aaron Rodgers about as far as I can throw myself, and I can't even pick myself up right now. So, I'm going with Kirk Cousins. Just being real. So, yeah, I wouldn't trust me. Yeah, no. How flaky you are, and how you look at Kirk Cousins, man, he's been down. Look here. We're not going to mistake talent, because if you judge talent for talent, resume for resume,
it's not even close.
Kirk Cousins is it's not even close. Aaron Rodgers smokes him by a mile, maybe by 2-3 miles, so he could probably take a nap and eat a brownie on the rest of the way. But so when it comes to talent, it's no question. But the thing is, look at how Kirk Cousins, he's going to his new team in our Atlanta Falcons BRF. He's down there in the locker room. He's down there in training camp. He's down there in front of the media. He's conducting meetings. He's talking about how he has, how he's excited, how he talked to Michael Penix Jr., although it was reported that he was blindsided by it. He immediately came out and said, oh, yeah, I've already talked to him. He's anxious to get in camp and everything like that. Look at what he's doing versus what Aaron Rodgers is doing right about now. People can talk about the contract all they want to. Even I had my sentiments about the contract. I don't hide from it. But the thing is this. Look at what he's doing. Look how he's out in front of the media, getting ahead of everything right now. Look how he's conducting himself in training camp, building a rapport. I mean, getting with your receivers and, getting with the backup quarterback that is about to replace you within the next 2 years. Calling him up after the draft. That's a sign of leadership. Those are the intangibles that a Peyton Manning has, that a Tom Brady has, that a Joe Montana has. Not being on TV when your team is in the middle of what can be considered to be a Super Bowl or bust year, where you can have a playoff run, where you can have a Super Bowl or bust year. Not being on TV talking smack about a comedian that's not even in the football community. So as far as who I want this year, it's not just because I'm an Atlanta Falcons fan. It's because hey, I put my management and my ownership eyes on when I see these quarterbacks. And who's the quarterback doing all the right things right now? Got to be Kirk Cousins by a mile, so I'm taking him.
You also want to take Kirk Cousins to Magic City. Let's not act or pretend as if you don't want to.
Hey man, I wish Follies was still open, man.
Oh
Still
Lord.
open, man. Maybe go to King of Diamonds too, man. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, geez.
BRF, which quarterback you going with, Rodgers or Kirk?
I mean, Champ pretty much nailed everything. He pretty much nailed everything on the head. Like, I mean, yeah, you look at the resume, it's not even close. But you have to look at actions. You have to look at their actions, since they joined the franchise. And Kirk Cousins has pretty much been down for the cause since day one. I mean, the pressers, every just everything that the Atlanta Falcons have done, that whether it's the PR team, I think I'll just go ahead and say it right here. The Atlanta Falcons had the best schedule release video out of any team in the National Football League. You can argue with your mama. I don't care. They used an NFL Street style video for their NFL schedule release video. If you haven't seen it, go see it. It's one of the coolest things you will ever see in your lifetime. They had the best schedule release video of the year. And I feel like it's not even close. Kirk Cousins has just been he has exemplified everything you're supposed to do coming in as the new franchise quarterback of your new team, and he's come in and he's done everything right. Even with the Michael Penix thing, like everybody's talking about, because I'm one of those I'm one of those who might be in the minority who understood and liked the pick, because whether people want to admit it or not, the pick makes sense. Whether people want to admit it or not, I was one of those who felt that way. The fact that he came out and just was a leader through all of that, and now was in OTAs, is going to go to minicamp, building the chemistry with his wide receivers. I'm expecting big things from him, but he's expecting big things of himself, and that's what I respect about Kirk Cousins coming to Atlanta. He knows the pressure that's going to be on him. He knows the pressure that's going to be put on him, particularly by the city and by the fans who have had crappy quarterback play, to say the least, over the last 2 seasons. So he's coming in with pressure, but he's coming in with the mindset like, I want to be here. I want to help this team win. I want to help this team get as far as they can possibly go with the talent that's been assembled here. And I respect Kirk Cousins every day he's here. This question should be Aaron Rodgers. The answer should be Aaron Rodgers because of his resume and what he's done in the National Football League. The problem is his leadership with the Jets right now is terrible. He's not showing anything. He's basically running his mouth more than he's running on the football field, and that needs to change for the New York Jets to make progress going into the new season. So just for his leadership qualities alone, you have to go with Kirk Cousins.
I'm going with Kirk Cousins because I think, unlike Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins' game is not predicated on mobility. And I would know Kirk Cousins because he used to play for my Commanders. And Kirk Cousins has always been a very consistent quarterback. One thing about him, he puts up numbers. He's great with the deep ball. He's going to find a way to get guys involved, particularly Kyle Pitts. I want to see how he and Kyle Pitts, because now finally Kyle Pitts has a quarterback to work with, going back to Matt Ryan in his last few years in the NFL. But finally, it's better than what you previously had with Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke, which that didn't turn out so well. Gotten to a point, Champ has used the coin term, Desmond Ridder couldn't pass gas even if you fed him refried beans. With Kirk Cousins, his game is not predicated on mobility, even though he can move around a little bit. Aaron Rodgers, on the other hand, his game is known for mobility because of what he can do, the types of throws he makes inside and outside the pocket. You look at the rapport that he's having, Kirk Cousins, which has been great. He's being exactly what a leader is supposed to do. Aaron Rodgers, on the other hand, the antithesis. You look at the division, Atlanta should easily win this division. They should be in the conversation with the teams, and they're just as loaded offensively, just like the Jets. You have Bryce Robinson, Kyle Pitts, Drake London. Hell, Champ wouldn't mind having a T. Higgins on his team. He would love to have another wide receiver to complement that offense. And of course, you have the defense. Now, the only thing Champ disagreed with the Michael Penix, he wanted Dallas Turner because he wanted a pass rusher. And I told Champ, hey, you might as well. I told Champ about Montez Sweat. BRF wanted to get his hands on Montez Sweat. I've been trying to tell Champ about Montez Sweat, man. That dude is a beast. I think Atlanta, they should win this division because when you look at Tampa, yes, Baker Mayfield is coming off a great season. Shout out to Baker. Happy he got his money. But is Baker Mayfield, can he replicate that again? And then when you look at the Saints, I don't want to get into Champ with Derek Carr. We already know how Champ feels about Derek Carr at this point. He is what he is.
Funny story about that, man. I have to tell this story because BRF checked me on a story about to tell. BRF checked me when that Derek Carr free agency first happened because I predicted New Orleans to win that division the minute that they got it. Yeah, I did. And the first person who came out and said no, and I give him the credit for the statement that I always say, you know football better than that, because he actually said that in that video. He said, you know better than that. You know Derek Carr's not going to do anything on his team. And he was absolutely right. If you go back and look at that video, that was a flat out, I mean, he was flat out right on the money, BRF was. And man, I salute you for that because you warned me about Derek Carr. So I thought they was going to immediately shoot to the top of this division.
And
I thought he was wrong by Raiders and everything. So I mean, you was absolutely right in that case right there, bro.
Now and I'll say this too real quick. I remember that video too, because when I made that video, one of my mutuals, DJ, if you're seeing this, shout out to you. He's a Saints fan. So of course, you know, he was kind of like, he's a Saints fan. So he sees Derek Carr. He's like, oh yeah, we got this. And I'm just like, okay, y'all keep telling yourself this. I mean, Derek Carr's. I'll say this. I feel kind of bad because I was one of those when the debate was going on the year before Derek Carr's last year with the Raiders. I was one of those. I was on the Derek Carr side. But I felt like the numbers kind of backed that up when he was with the Raiders, just from the standpoint of he didn't necessarily have the talent that Kirk Cousins had with Minnesota, and Derek Carr was putting up comparable, if not better, numbers. And it was something about his swag that I like, which is why I kind of rolled with Derek Carr. But it was that last year with the Raiders, getting Devontae Adams and basically not doing anything. I'm just like, no, I'm out. I'm out on him. I'm out on him. And then I heard the New Orleans Saints acquired him. I'm like, so? Okay, yeah. Y'all gonna pick the New Orleans Saints to win the division because of Derek Carr. If you're doing that with a straight face, I'm questioning your judgment. I'm questioning your full-on judgment. So
But BRF, in fairness to Champ, is it fair to say that, okay, yes, Derek Carr, but at the same time, simultaneously, look at the other quarterbacks coming into that season. Baker Mayfield, 4 teams in 6 years. Bryce Young, a rookie, who the Carolina Panthers drafted with the #1 overall pick. Not C.J. Stroud. They traded the Chicago Bears, who had the number 1 overall pick, they traded that pick, and Chicago ended up getting first round picks and DJ Moore. And then on top of that, you look at the Atlanta Falcons. To Champ's point, Desmond Ridder couldn't pass gas even if you fed him refried beans. You had to deal with Arthur Smith as far as a play caller and how he was as a head coach. So is that fair to say that, you know what? Of all the teams, I lean towards Derek Carr, because even though he's not the best quarterback in the world, but compared to the other quarterbacks in that division and compared to the other coaches, who we have to trust?
I hear where you're coming from, but also at the same time, I still look at the supporting cast of those 4 teams. At the end of the day, Atlanta was still the best supporting cast of those 4 teams, I felt. Even with Tampa having guys like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, even with Carolina having an underrated defensive line, defensive front 7. I'm still looking at the Falcons and the supporting cast and what they're bringing to the table. When you're saying, oh, the quarterback doesn't have to do screw up and they're going to win this division. All the quarterback has to do is not screw up. They win this division. They are still the most talented team in this division. When you're saying that, that's still kind of like, I'm still kind of leaning with the Falcons. But the problem was the quarterback screwed up. The quarterback did not play well. The quarterback play screwed it up. Thus,
not just the
opening
quarterback, the head coach too. Office looked clueless, especially that last game. You remember, even Champ defended Jameis Winston. Remember how Shannon Sharp, and we'll get into Shannon Sharp in just a second. Remember how Shannon Sharp said, I would have cut Jameis Winston?
Yeah, for what? I mean, didn't nobody get mad? Look, if the team didn't get mad, then nobody get mad except Arthur Smith, because they knew he wasn't going to get past the locker room before they packed his bags and sat him outside the stadium in the first place. So nobody get mad at him. So guess what? If the defense ain't mad, the team ain't out there squabbling and fighting, and guess what? They obviously didn't take it hard as he did. Like I said, Arthur Smith knew they was about to pack his bag, knew that he was about to get his walking papers and got to get his bags packed. That's why he got upset. Well, that's Bush League. Yeah, of course, because you know you're about to get fired. So, I mean, hey, I'd be mad too if I knew I was about to get fired and somebody knocked something off my desk. That's all it's equivalent to. You knowing you about to get fired and somebody knocking something off your desk, a piece of paperwork off your desk. That's all that was. And guess what? Hey, they wanted to get Jamal Williams his touchdown for the year so he can get a piece of his contract. I don't blame him not one bit. So guess what? You up out of there, and rightfully so. You didn't do anything with the talent that we had. You were supposed to be this offensive guru from the Tennessee Titans, and you proved to be exact opposite of that. So good riddance to you. Bye-bye.
And it's not just that. How do you manage to go 7-10 3 straight years? How? Even I mean, now the 2021 team, I get that. A lot of team like nobody expected the 2021 team to really do anything, even with Matt Ryan still there. This close to making the playoffs. 2022, okay, yeah, you bring in Marcus Mariota, but you still have a really talented squad. Okay, you should do something. 7-10. All right, 2023, you go get Jesse Bates. You make all the moves you made in the offseason on that defense. I mean, that defense is looking scarier than it's looked in years. Okay, here you go. And then 7-10 again because you put all your faith in Desmond Ridder. Now, don't get me wrong. I wanted to see what he could do because I mean he's got some arm strength. I mean he's got some ability. I mean give it a shot. But at some point it was just like, oh, you're cringing when he's throwing the ball because you don't know what's gonna happen. So it was just, the New Orleans game. I feel like, I mean at that point the season's over. I mean what can you do? Now I will say this though. I think those players. There's still a little pride there, and I think those players. If I'm those players, I still file it away. You keep it as a receipt because you know you're gonna see them twice this year. It's like, okay, we remember what you did in New Orleans that last game. Watch what happened in these 2 games this year. You keep a little receipt. But I mean, yeah, that's one of those things where it's like Arthur Smith knew the writing was on the wall. He knew he was about to go. So yeah, that was all. That was kind of like deflection, emotions coming out because he knew what was about to happen. And sure enough, bam! First chance Atlanta found the first chance the front office got, they booted him, and deservedly so.
All right, fellas, let's talk about Shannon Sharp. Signed a big multi-year extension with ESPN. Congratulations to Shannon Sharp. I'm reading an article here from SportsIllustrated.com from Kyle T. Mosley. It says it right here. Sorry. Today, ESPN announced that HBCU and NFL legend had signed a multi-year contract to increase his role and visibility on First Take, which also features Stephen A. Smith and host Molly Karam. Smith initially brought Sharp as one of the greatest regular contributors in August of 2023. This is a statement from David Roberts, who is the ESPN's head of event and studio production. Shannon Sharp has been an incredible addition to the First Take team, enhancing the show's dynamic with his engaging presence and insightful commentary. Shannon's chemistry with Stephen A. Smith has elevated our debates and been another key reason First Take is the premier destination for morning sports discussion. First and foremost, like I said, man, congratulations to Shannon Sharp. He's doing great things. And obviously, we know the work he's doing with Nightcap. And, of course, how can we not forget Club Shay Shay, especially that interview he did in the beginning of the season with Cat Williams, which broke the internet. It was trending. Everyone was talking about it on social media. I mean, him going after a lot of comedians, Martin Lawrence, Steve Harvey, Cedric the Entertainer, Tiffany Haddish, so much more. It goes to show you, in my opinion, 2 things could be true. I have to give credit to Skip Bayless, because Skip Bayless did give Shannon Sharp the opportunity to go on Undisputed FS1. Because before, Shannon Sharp was known for the NFL on CBS, which I liked him a lot, especially the job that he did. And, of course, the Hall of Fame football player. I mean, one of the greatest tight ends in NFL history. Won 3 Super Bowls, 2 with the Denver Broncos, 1 with the Baltimore Ravens. It goes to show you 2 things could be true. Yes, Skip Bayless definitely gave Shannon Sharp an opportunity on Undisputed, and they were doing their thing on Undisputed with Skip and Shannon. But it also goes to show you that it does not take away who Shannon Sharp is and what he has accomplished. It just means that somebody else along the way deserves as much credit as he does. And unequivocally, if you look at the ratings between First Take and Undisputed, not even close. I hate to say this, but Undisputed Skip Bayless, he's on his last leg. Because to think that you can get any other guy, whether Keyshawn Johnson, Paul Pierce, even Michael Irvin, and I like Michael Irvin. I love the playmaker. Did a good job for ESPN as well. Doesn't matter who you bring. They are not Shannon Sharp. He's charismatic, funny. Obviously, he's from the Georgia area. Y'all would know better than most. A lot of people compare my man Champ to Shannon Sharp. I see it all the time on the comment section below. But that's just that Southern humor, that Georgia humor, that Southern hospitality. Shannon Sharp, man, is just phenomenal. I'm happy with the success that he is doing. And I think he's only going to go and go. I think Stephen A. Smith, him picking him up, Shannon Sharp has thanked Stephen A. Smith for giving him the opportunity, but also Stephen A. Smith knew it's about competition. We still ESPN. We still trying to be number 1, and we want to go even further and further and further. And it's great that his role on First Take is increased because a couple of months, football season, and of course I want to hear the debates between him and Dan Orlowski, Marcus Spears, Ryan Clark, Mina Kimes, Kimberly Martin, Mike Tannenbaum. Doesn't matter who from ESPN covering football. I just want to see Shannon Sharp because of his knowledge, his insight, and I just think, man, he has so much flair, man. And I think what he's doing right now, when you think of one of the hottest commodities in the sports media, you got to talk about him. I love me some Charles Barkley. I like Mike Wilbon, of course, from PTI. Pardon the interruption on ESPN. There are a lot of great guys. But Shannon Sharp is definitely up there as well as far as the hottest commodities in sports media. So what are your thoughts about Shannon Sharp with the multi-year extension with ESPN?
I'll kick it off this time.
Go ahead,
Um,
BRF.
I'm happy for him. He deserves it. I mean, seeing his growth, like early, like even before Undisputed, like when he was starting to get on TV, like he started on ESPN first. He started on ESPN first, and like just seeing him and just kind of become what he is today. I mean, how can you not be happy? How can you not be happy for a guy like that, man? And just everything that he's doing, I'm proud of him. I'm happy for his success. I wish him more. I wish him all the success in the world because let me tell you something. He is one of my he is one of my favorite guys to watch, whether it's on TV, whether it's on YouTube with Nightcap, especially Club Shay Shay. I love Club Shay Shay. I mean, I've even before the Cat Williams episode, I was a fan of Club Shay Shay, but the Cat Williams episode, it was just like that was one of the greatest things I've ever seen. I mean, because me being a big Cat Williams fan as I am, just watching that, I think my mouth dropped about 10 minutes in, and it just stayed locked. Like the rest of that episode, it stayed locked. The stuff that was coming out that man's mouth, he was talking about, and I'm just like, like I was like shocked about it at first, but then I got to thinking about it, and I'm like, you know what? It's Cat Williams. I'm kind of not surprised this is coming out of his mouth. So it was must see. It was must see. I think that video had done like millions of views in like hours. I mean, it didn't break the internet; it shattered it. I mean, it dismantled the internet. That was a sight. That was a sight to behold. But you got to have two to tango. And Shannon Sharp was the one kind of he that is one of those situations where it's like if you ask the right questions, you will get the right answers. And Shannon Sharp was not missing with those with those questions. He was not missing a beat. So the man has leaps and bounds gotten better. And just seeing him on it, I can't wait for football season because I just know he gonna cook some people with his knowledge and his intellect and just his insight in the game. I know he gonna cook some folks, and I can't wait for it. I'm here for it. I'm ready for it. So shout out to Shannon. Also, I want to give a quick shout out to Sterling because you know his brother got to be like uber proud of him, seeing him become what he is, becoming basically the newest like conglomerate when it comes to like sports media. What he's doing right now is so it's just like you can't feel nothing but happiness for this dude. So it is well deserved. I hope eventually he gets his own show. Like I said, I'm talking about put like how they say in wrestling, push him to the moon. Push this man to the moon. Push him to the moon. He deserves every good thing he gets. Push that brother to the moon. That man gonna make ESPN loads and loads and loads of bread. Just straight up. Just get that man whatever he want and let him do his thing and let him just succeed. Cause that's what Shannon Sharp's gonna do. He's too charismatic. He's too smart. He knows what he's doing in front of the camera. He deserves every penny of that contract.
Champ.
Man, I will say this, man. Granted, I will say this. Number one, always be grateful for the people that give you opportunities. Always. But the mistake I think that Skip made was, not capitalizing on that. Because the thing is, when you have an asset like that, you have to take care of it. and you can't do it by offending people on live television.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was, I think, the breaking point of that relationship. Because the thing is, I think we would have heard of him. I mean, a lot of us from down south, I saw Shannon Sharp on ESPN. I saw Shannon Sharp on CBS when he was taking up for Ray Lewis, when Boomer Esiason had a lot of things to say about Ray Lewis in his last game. We saw him before. So, whether or not he would have been there with Skip, it was his destiny anyway. But, hey, shout out to him for giving him, shout out to Skip for giving him his props and giving him his big break. But at the same time, you got to take care of your best asset, because in reality, Skip Bayless was the most polarizing figure in sports. I mean, and look, that just didn't start. It went all the way back to the Chicago Bulls days. If you go back to a certain interview with him and Deion Sanders, he put something in his book about Troy Aikman. We won't say what it is on the air, but you know what I'm talking about. So he had something to say about Troy Aikman. And Deion Sanders literally went on live TV and checked him on live television. It's like, what gives you the right to say that about my teammate, about something that you have yet to prove? It's not even proven, and you writing that in your book, you're filed for that. So he was the most polarizing figure in sports long before he got exposed on national television for disrespecting Shannon Sharp. He was already a polarizing figure. Not to mention, some of the run-ins he had with Richard Sherman prior to Undisputed as well. So I was always wondering how that was going to work out as well. So, hey, in the great words of, hey, good job to Shannon Sharp. In the great words of Jay-Z, I heard folks say they made Hove. Make Hove say, okay, so make another Hove. So, hey, you failed to making another one. So, Skip, you on your way up out of there. You could not live with your own failure, but now you can't come back to me. Thanos, by the way. So, you have to take care of your greatest asset. Shannon Sharp deserves every bit of it. I wish, and I say this wholeheartedly, I wish that people would be happy for him instead of making him a polarizing figure. It seems like the bigger you get, it seems like when you're on a level playing field, when you're the underdog, you're lovable and everybody loves everything about you. But it seems like as you start ascending, people start saying everything that they can in order to discredit you. I don't know if that's just me or not. It seems like when he was on Undisputed and, he was coming up and, he was Uncle Shannon, the Miles and the Yak and all of that, the most lovable guy in the universe. But as he came up, it's just like, okay, where's all this animosity coming from everybody? It's like everything he's saying is being critiqued and taken out of context all of a sudden. I don't know if that's just me or not, but it feels that way.
I think, Champ, jealousy. A lot of people are just jealous because of who Shannon Sharp, where he came from, and for him to be in the position where he is now. I think jealousy and look, I really didn't want to bring this up, but I must. As a people, we should just take the time to just acknowledge and appreciate what we have, because once it's gone, it's gonna be hard to replicate. You won't see anything like this again, so you might as well enjoy it for now. And speaking of moving on, Champ, you know, and also Bad Boys. I know I'm going off subject, but Bad Boys, the new movie that came out with Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. Shout out to both of them. Did well, more than well, over 100 million. I think over $100 million in the first week or so.
Yeah.
And Rob Schneider obviously said a lot of derogatory things about Will Smith, calling him a liar and a fraud, and Stephen A. Smith bringing up the Oscars incident. Look, man, all I'm going to say regarding the Oscars incident, I've said before, Will Smith, what he did was wrong. It was low, and it was inexcusable what he did to Chris Rock. But at the same time, should that overshadow all of his work? Should that
No.
take away everything what he's accomplished because of that one horrible moment? Should we just throw that aside? And look, Shannon Sharp, is he perfect? No, he's not perfect. He's had some mistakes with TV and stuff like that, but still, just enjoy it for now. And to your point, Champ, you brought up Skip. That's when I knew I don't see these two coexisting. After accusing Shannon Sharp of being jealous of Tom Brady, wait a minute, Shannon Sharp is an 8-time Pro Bowler.
That was
three-time
definitely
Super Bowl champion. I'm in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I'm making people know me. I'm knowledgeable. I'm articulate. I'm making money than I ever imagined or ever thought I could ever make. And you going as far as accusing someone of being jealous, and then the tweet about DeMar Hamlin.
Yes.
Why do you think Shannon Sharp decided to take a leave of absence, and then while he was giving his monologue, Skip interrupted him? That's when I kind of knew that these two can't coexist, and we're gonna have to see which one was gonna be better without the other. I knew Shannon was gonna be fine, because at the end of the day, the personality and all the things that you're seeing right now, as with Skip Bayless, man, you already a polarizing figure before. You lose a commodity like Shannon. Normally, it's not easy to replace a guy like Shannon. To your point, Chip, you got to capitalize on the asset that you have.
Yes, indeed.
And if you're not going to get Shannon, who else are you going to find that's better?
And like I said, we've seen a lot of guys, you try to bring in a lot of guys to replace him at a certain point, but it doesn't have that same washable effect. I mean, Shannon Sharp was one of the most relatable guys that you will ever see on TV. And the reason why we start calling him Uncle Shannon, because he's the most, you can see, we've all seen that uncle sit around here, smoke Black and Miles. We've all seen him, drink cognac. And we've seen him wear the do-rag. We've seen him, seen him do a lot of things, and, he's a lot, like I said, in order to succeed in any business, first and foremost, you have to be likable. That's the main thing. People don't understand the ability of being likable. If you are unlikable and difficult to deal with, yeah, people will put up with you for a certain period of time, but after a while, they're going to discard you in a minute. You have to be likable. And I think that's the factor that Shannon Sharp brought to Undisputed. It was a likable show. And it was on a network where a lot of their shows wasn't really likable. When you think about the show with Jason Whitlock, do you really want to look at that show? No, I really don't want to look at that. When you think about the show with
as soon as you said Jason Whitlock, boy, he turned.
PSP treat Jason Whitlock like the plague.
We went from a full course meal to all of a sudden peanuts from Shannon Sharp to Jason Whitlock.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I digress.
It's all good. I mean, PSP treat Jason Whitlock like he the plague, but man, to go for, it was not a lot of shows. That was your flagship show. Now another show that you could say, what's the word? With I think it's What's the Word with Joy and with those guys. That's a likable show, but not a lot of people like Colin Cowherd. He's, depending on who you are, he's not everybody's cup of tea. So the most likable show that you had on FS1 outside of the Sunday Crew was Undisputed. So for them to just do that and you to break apart that show because of misunderstandings and disrespect is kind of like crazy. Like I said, that was one of the most likable shows on there. Like I said, a lot of people, when you're talking casually, I will say casually, because, believe it or not, the casual fan matters. People talk about casual, but the casual fan matters because, hey, they the ones tuning in Even they the ones tuning in and bringing a lot of revenue. Let's just get that out of the way. But when the casual fan talks in the barbershop, in the beauty shops, in the malls, we wasn't talking about the herd with Colin Cowherd. We wasn't talking about what's the word. We wasn't talking about a lot of the other shows outside of Sunday football on Fox. We was talking about, hey man, did you watch Undisputed? What happened on Undisputed Today on YouTube? What happened on Undisputed Today? You know, guys on third shift want to know what happened to Undisputed. Waking up in the middle of the day after they done their shift to stay up just to watch Undisputed. So for them to lose that show was not only a big blow to Skip Bayless, but you know, to that network as well. Because guess what? Even though you may not have watched Colin Cowherd and some of those other shows frequently, if Undisputed was on and it just so happened to go off, he was like, okay, I might as well just sit here and watch and see what they're going to say to get a different opinion. When you lose a flagship show like that or an asset like that, it takes attention away from other shows as well. So, you know, I think Skip should have considered that before he started really, you know, wilding like he did. Because, you know, you're not only affecting yourself, you're affecting the network. Because, you know, you might as well just, when you lose a Shannon Sharp, you might as well give your audience a ticket to the competitor's parking lot. Because guess what? They're going to go wherever this commodity goes. So, hey, shout out to Shannon Sharp. You deserve every bit of it, from all the adversity at CBS to everything. You know, you deserve it. And I can't wait to see more, man. This is a special time. This is a special time, man. And, you know, hey, you know, I can't wait to see PSP get a contract with ESPN, man. I can't wait to see that. That's going to be special.
I don't know if ESPN wants to see me. I don't know about that. But if there's one thing, I'm cool with the Sports PSP pod. And listen, any other pods that they want me to come on and for me to collaborate, hey, I got no problem. My funny part with the nightcap, as BRF mentioned, I'm sorry, I must admit this. We won't go any further. Miss Nasty B. Miss Nasty B. Yeah, I don't need to go any further, but y'all know exactly what I'm talking about with Miss Nasty B.
All I'm gonna say is no. Yeah, no. All I'm gonna say is I give my man props for speaking his mind, and I leave it at that.
Lord, forgive me for what I'm about to do.
Boy, yes.
Yeah. But anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about wrestling. I wish I could have come up with a favorite wrestling moment, but I thought about Bash at the Beach 2000. One of the most controversial wrestling moments. Hulk Hogan versus Jeff Jarrett for the WCW title. Vince Russo, who was with WCW at the time, who wrote the match, he had Jeff Jarrett coming out on top, retaining the title, and then later on, champ, correct me if I'm wrong, facing Booker T in the main event for the WCW title, and that Booker T would go on top. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Hulk Hogan won the match against Jeff Jarrett because I believe he exercised his creative control clause, which means that he can determine the outcome of the match and how his character was portrayed or presented. And then in the match, Jeff Jarrett laid down on the mat. Hogan, looking stunned, disbelief, pins him 1, 2, 3, gets the title, walks home. But then Vince Russo, he cut a promo killing Hulk Hogan. And then later on, Jeff Jarrett versus Booker T for the WCW title. Booker T won. Great moment for Booker T. Man, what are your thoughts about Bash at the Beach?
I set the tone for it. Look, I don't think people understand how huge Bash at the Beach was. Bash at the Beach, look, let me tell you something. Bash at the Beach was where some of the greatest matches that you ever want to see happen. Bash at the Beach was equivalent to SummerSlam with the WWE. Hey, we saw Hulk Hogan turn heel. Where? At Bash at the Beach. You saw Goldberg extend his streak against Kurt Hennig in arguably one of his greatest matches. At where? Bash at the Beach. You saw Dennis Rodman and Karl Malone with DDP and Hollywood Hogan. Where? At Bash at the Beach. So guess what? Bash at the Beach had a hell of a rap sheet for years to come. Years to come. So, I mean, for that to go off of there, I think that was the death knell for WCW at a certain point, man, because guess what? You know, for you to, back then, it wasn't the internet age like it was now. We didn't know that necessarily the fix was in at a certain point. And I think, although that was one of the craziest, that pulled the curtain back a little bit too much. That pulled the curtain back a little bit too much, if you want me to be honest with you. As far as Vince Russo is concerned, man, look here, man. If you want to, one person who I would love to interview, and I've been on record saying this, one person who I love to interview, man, is Jim Cornette. Because, man, I know his language can be a little bit colorful, but like I said, I want his knowledge because of how long he's been in the wrestling business. But when you talk about Vince Russo, man, it's kind of like, ooh, be ready for some 4-letter words out there, you know what? Because guess what? Jim Cornette got him for it as far as Vince Russo. And I understand. It's kind of like the way Jim Cornette looks at wrestling the way we view sports. It's a way of life. This is what I do. I love it. I love what I do. I love coming out here entertaining it. I'm not just in this for the money. I'm in this because I love it and I can make a difference. I can show some young people how to make money as well. I can send the next generation off with my knowledge and everything. I could show that the wrestling industry, not only the wrestling industry, but history itself, you can learn more from the past than you ever can from the present because history always repeats itself. And if you look at a lot of wrestling, you know, history often repeats itself, hey, I would say if anything killed WCW, especially towards the end, it'll have to be Vince Russo. I think that people talk about the finger poke of doom, but them really, and I think that's why it took Booker T so long to get over with the WWE fans, because they look at his first title win as like, okay, you had your first title run, but it was at the expense after we knew the curtain got pulled back a little bit at Bash at the Beach. And I think that tainted Booker T's first title win. That should have been arguably the biggest night of his life, him finally going over. Not only that, and I hate to bring this up, but it is history, him being only the second Black World Heavyweight Champion in the history of WCW. Remember, the first one was Ron Simmons Farouk back, I think, years earlier.
1992, I think.
1992, when he beat Pat Vader. So that was history in the making within itself. And for him to go over after being the World Television Champion, after being U.S. Champion, after being one of the best tag teams, arguably, in WCW and, wrestling history. For him finally going over, but it being on the night of that promo and that controversy was a disservice to Booker T, and I don't think he deserved that at that point in time. But as far as that night is concerned, I point to that one moment as the day that WCW died. It was just a matter that WCW ended that night. It took it another year for it to fully die, but that was the day it died.
I also think it also not only hurt Booker T, but also Jeff Jarrett. Because Champ, he comes from a wrestling background. I think both his father and his grandmother were wrestling promoters. And
yes,
Jeff Jarrett. And I was watching Dark Side of the Ring. I love the biography series, folks. Go watch it on Hulu. He was contemplating, do I really want to do this? do I really want to be involved in this type of situation? And that really like messed him up. And I'm glad you mentioned Jim Cornette, champ, because I cannot say the stuff that Jim Cornette wants to do to Vince Russo. You're gonna have to go on YouTube or do some research on that because again, I'm on the air. If you want to hear what I have to say, maybe I can do it on some different platform, but I won't do it on mine. Jim Cornette took the wrestling business seriously, and Vince Russo, like I said, man, he doesn't know what he's doing with the wrestling. Champ, remember another controversial moment for wrestling, the Brawl for All, and all because he tried to remember, all because he Dark Side of the Ring, because John Bradshaw Layfield was talking trash, how he could whip everybody's, you know what, and then Vince Russo came up with the idea. And if you watch Jim Cornette's face while he's going after Vince Russo for how stupid the idea was by hurting the integrity of the wrestling business, putting people's health career in jeopardy, especially with Dr. Death Steve Williams.
Rest in peace. Yeah.
Yeah, rest in peace. And after that, I don't think, champ, after the Brawl for All, he never returned back to the WWE.
No, he ended up going to WCW down there. He ended up going to WCW, and ironically, he was down there with not only Vince Russo but Ed Ferrara as well. And hey, if you think that Mr. Cornette had some first words to say about Vince Russo, you should hear what he had to say about Ed Ferrara as well. So when he was in charge of TNA, so hey, those are two people that Jim Cornette doesn't really care for, and rightfully so. Especially when they made, and that was during the time where not only did they kill off Dr. Death figuratively in the WWE, that was during the time where, remember, the great Jim Ross, who is currently recovering right now, get well soon, he was having issues with a lot of his health issues. And remember, they were making fun of it, and that is why you had a lot of incidents with him, Vince Russo, and Ed Ferrara. Because the thing is, he didn't like them making fun of Jim Ross because of his Bell's palsy and his health episodes. So that's another reason why he didn't like him as well. Because how could you make fun of someone with Bell's palsy? Would you want someone to make fun of a family member that you had with that defect? No, you wouldn't. So why would you go on TV and make fun of that? That's another reason why I know Jim Cornette did not like Vince Russo or Ed Ferrara, but that was like I said, that is I think where Vince Russo failed is this. All the ideas that you had in WWE, they were right place, right time with the right people. You can't necessarily replicate that in the WCW, where you have a lot of these aging stars in Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, and Kevin Nash, Lex Luger, a lot of these other guys, along with a lot of other stars that wasn't necessarily made men as of yet. You had the perfect catalyst in the WWE. You had Stone Cold, you had The Rock, you had DX, you had The Nation, you had Ken Shamrock, you had that's arguably the deepest roster you're ever going to see. It was so deep, they ran 4 shows a week on live television. Monday Night Raw, SmackDown, Saturday Night Shotgun, not to mention one of the lost shows, and I miss it to this day, Sunday Night Heat.
Yeah.
That's how deep that roster was. You can't bring that same mentality from that locker room into WWE, where you had a deep star-studded cast, to a team where Hulk Hogan is still the main attraction, and you had a wrestler. No disrespect to Goldberg, UGA, go dog, but you didn't necessarily have a guy that can give you a 1-hour match in Goldberg. You didn't necessarily have that. You didn't necessarily have a Shawn Michaels. And you had a whole lot of guys that were being misused. So you can't bring that same mentality, because it's going to hurt you more than it does good. And plus, You didn't have a long-term plan like you did in WWE, where you knew you had the backing of a Vince McMahon. You had to deal with a lot of corporate guys who, for lack of a better term, didn't know anything about the wrestling business. So that's the reason why I believe Vince Russo failed in the WWE, the WCW because of that. And say what you will about him. Hey, a lot of things happen. But having a Vince McMahon to filter your ideas through, especially back then at his apex, where people don't realize how quickly he was having to recreate these guys. Remember, people don't understand this. 2 years earlier, before Stone Cold Steve, 1 year earlier, just 1 year earlier, before Stone Cold Steve, let me retract that. Just 6 months in 1996, when he faced Bret Hart at Survivor Series, remember what Stone Cold was doing in WrestleMania? He was facing off against Savio Vega. Let me say that again. He was facing off against Savio Vega just 5 to 6 months earlier. So Vince was having to recreate stars very, very quickly. Not to mention he lost Shawn Michaels in the heat of the Monday Night Wars. You lost your showstopper in the middle of the war. Yeah, so people don't realize how quickly he had to recreate those stars after losing to Hulk Hogan, after losing to Macho Man, especially after losing to Bret Hart. Everybody thought it was over. So it pays to have a Vince McMahon to filter your ideas through, regardless of what may have happened off the camera. But you didn't have that in the WWE. You had more corporate guys who didn't know anything about wrestling. And that's another factor that went into it as well.
BRF.
Bash at the Beach. That was one of my favorite WCW pay-per-views. I feel like with Bash at the Beach, okay, if you look at the WWE, you look at their big four. I mean, Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series. When I grew up, WCW was my go-to at first, and I kind of feel like their equivalent to their big four. I feel were Super Brawl, the Great American Bash, Bash at the Beach, and Starrcade. I feel will kind of be like their equivalent to the big four. And Bash at the Beach 2000 it really destroyed that pay-per-view. And it's like just all of the aura and the legacy that show in particular had built. And I felt bad for Booker. I felt bad for Jeff Jarrett because they should have been two of the main attractions at the time. They should have been two of the guys getting pushed. But it was always Hogan, and it was always Flair, and then it was always Nash and Luger, and just like, I mean, you got Booker T, you have Jeff Jarrett, you got Scott Steiner, you got these guys coming up, these new younger guys trying to make an impact, and you keep pushing the same people over and over and over, and it's just like, I mean, it's like as a guy to come up in the WCW at the time, what do you do when the same people are going to be getting the big pushes, and then like when you feel like your time has come, one of those guys could be like, hey, we should go this route because creative control and da 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 da. And it's like what do you do? Like what do you do with that? Like I still feel personally like the finger poke of doom at the beginning of '99 after Starrcade where Nash beat Goldberg. I felt like that was the start of the downfall. And I remember hearing Nash kind of explain it. I think basically what it boiled down to is ultimately they knew Goldberg was kind of starting to get a little stale with the fans. He was starting to get kind of played out. It was like he was going to go to certain areas where he was going to be booed, like the wrestling cities or whatnot. They was going to get booed, and they were going to be the ones getting cheered. And just like And I remember that. I bought Starcade '98. I saw that pay per view. That's one of the best. That's one of the best pay per views I've ever seen. Because that card, top to bottom, was loaded. I mean, your opening match for Starcade '98 was a triple threat for the Cruiserweight Championship between Rey Mysterio, Juventud Guerrero, and Billy Kidman. Tell me that wasn't. I mean, now, come on. And I feel like the finger poke of doom after that just started killing the momentum, and then it was like Bash at the Beach was just like that big old black ribbon of death. It's how I feel like it was. And and let me tell you something that and I hate it because they honestly could have really done something with that if they did it right. Because at the end of the day, wrestling is still about controversy and it's still about the fire that you can catch with certain situations. And I feel like if they had done it right, they really could have done something. They really could have made something out of it. But it's just like it's like they didn't know what they were doing. It's like they didn't know how to like really capitalize on something that they could have created a crap ton of momentum from that if they really did it right. But it was just like it was like a big snowball effect after that, and it just kept building and building and building and building, and then just ultimately it got to the Daytona Beach Nitro where WWE bought them out, and just that was it. So so it was just like for me, Bash at the Beach 2000, I feel is like I think it's arguably if it's not I think it's for me it's arguably like the biggest black eye just because of just the it's like they were it's like for me it's like they were more worried about trying to create a stir than actually try to build something with some substance to it, and that ultimately was what finished it off, because you could see in the coming months it was just like it was like they had no path, they had nowhere to go. It was just like random main event here, random main event there, random main event there. It was like there was no purpose after that. So Bash at the Beach 2000 is just for me, it's the ribbon. It's the ribbon of death for me when it comes to WCW.
Let's not put all of this on Vince Russo. We also got to put blame on Eric Bischoff as well, because of how Bischoff ran WCW in '98 and in '99. I just think with look, it was a horrible moment. Unfortunately, you could see once the Attitude Era came, WWE was taking over. Eventually, in 2001, Vince McMahon bought the company, bought WCW, and when I look at Bash at the Beach, I mean, it was a really, it's like the dark. It's like it was horrible. It was horrible for the company. It was horrible for the wrestlers. The only person that benefited was Hulk at the end of the day, because again, he had the money, of course. I mean, and rightfully so. Whether anyone liked it or not, Hulk Hogan did have creative control in his contract, so it was well within his right to determine the outcome of the match. I just hated it because, again, to Champ's point, it took away a great moment for Booker T, because not a lot of black wrestlers get that type of opportunity to become heavyweight champion at that particular time. And also, you put Jeff Jarrett in a horrible predicament. And like with Vince Russo and Eric Bischoff, the problem with Vince Russo is that he tried to use the Jerry Springer approach. And the other problem, Champ, with the problem Jim Cornette has with Vince Russo, it's not just the fact, it's not whether Vince Russo knew wrestling or not, is how he treated wrestling. He acts as if it's nothing. It's not real at all. Jim Cornette takes huge offense to it because, again, You have to take into account the injuries. You have to take into account the mental, the physical aspect. You have to take into account how he takes wrestling. Wrestling is his life. He eats, breathes, sleeps wrestling. And for people like Vince Russo to act as if it's not that big of a deal. And I hate to say this, but Vince Russo is proving more and more. I don't like using the term, is proving that he's a liar. I can't trust him. Because again, the Montreal Screwjob champ. What Jim Cornette recalls Vince Russo eyes bugging out, to which Jim Cornette explained the double cross move, putting Shawn Michaels on the sharpshooter, which is Bret Hart's signature move, on Bret Hart. I don't know. Look, I believe Jim Cornette's story way more than I believe Vince Russo's story, because at least Jim Cornette is getting into detail. And in the Dark Side of the Ring, season 1, episode 2 of the Montreal Screwjob, I don't know if it was his attic or his basement, but there was a huge collection of wrestling books, classical wrestling books and magazines. And he said you can learn so much stuff about modern wrestling from these classic wrestling books and magazines, because history will always repeat itself. Then he brought up the other Montreal Screwjob. Remember 1931, the Battle of
Henri
the
Deglon.
Yes, Strangler Lewis versus Henri Deglon, in which Henri Deglon put Strangler Lewis's signature move on Strangler Lewis, and they won the match. Right? Correct me if I'm wrong, Champ.
Yeah, because
And-
they
Yeah,
they
go ahead.
bid it. Act
Yeah,
like
they bid
bid
him.
it.
Yeah, they bid him.
Acting like they bid him. Come to find out, his manager bid him in the back. So,
Right. And when Jim Cornette was asked a question by Vince McMahon, because Vince Russo and Jim Cornette were at Vince McMahon's house when they discussed the outcome, he recalled Vince McMahon asking him, "Well, how would you do it, pal?" He said, like, "Vince, double cross him. Put Shawn on the sharpshooter on Bret, which is the signature move." And Vince Russo, I'm sorry, man. I just, it's really hard to take him, like, honestly, seriously. I'm not gonna say he is completely responsible for WCW. Eric Bischoff has to take culpability for WCW as well,
mhm.
because he mentioned during 98, 99, his finances. They
Mhm.
were bad at the time, and they had to move on. Plus, also, Vince Russo, he said on Dark Side of the Ring, the ratings went up when he joined WCW from October, in the first 3 months, from October of 99 through December of 1999. Dave Meltzer, well-known journalist, he claimed that no, that wasn't the case. Each month, the ratings went down slightly. So I don't know who to trust. I don't know who's telling the truth, whether Vince Russo or Dave Meltzer. But when I look at Bash at the Beach, it was just a horrible moment, because the curtain was pulled back. And once that was pulled back, how is people going to take WCW seriously? And then the other things that Vince Russo tried to create that he brought to WWE with the Attitude Era. Yes, I'm not taking. Yes, Vince Russo did put the wrestlers back then in a situation better utilized, but at the same time, you had talent to work with. You had Stone Cold, you had The Rock, you had Undertaker, you had Mankind, and Champ. It also is a testament to the greatness of Paul Heyman, because when he was with ECW, when he had Austin, when he had Mick Foley and others, he did a better job utilizing them, as far as not only with matches, but also cutting promos and also getting the real authentic selves. So I think that's a testament. Even though Jim Cornette doesn't really like Paul Heyman, I don't think he likes Paul Heyman and vice versa. But at the same time, Paul Heyman is another example of how to utilize the talent around you as well, and how to maximize off it. Vince Russo, to me, I just feel like he's just taking credit. And he even admitted that people have accused him of taking credit. So I don't know.
You know, I never will forget, piggybacking on what you said about Jim Cornette and Paul Heyman. He said, "I've had my opinions about Paul Heyman, but you will never hear me call him a stupid guy, because he knows what he's doing." He said, I just had differences on how the way he did things with ECW. But I mean, that interview's out there. I'll send it to you a little bit later.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. I saw that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to Vince Russo, it's a glaring difference.
Yeah, it's very, very different. I got to ask y'all this question before we move to the next segment. And this has been on my mind, and I never asked anybody this because I didn't want to be, sound dumb. Do y'all think that Vince Russo created that moment at Bash at the Beach so he can finally recreate the Montreal screw job in his own little way?
In my opinion, he said that he pitched everything on Dark Side of the Ring. If you watch it carefully, champ, he said, I pitched the idea to Hogan and Jarrett, with Hogan winning the match, with Jarrett laying down, to cutting the promo, to the Hogan leaving, to cutting the promo, killing Hogan, to Booker T winning the title. Bischoff claimed it wasn't my idea. I guarantee you it wasn't Hulk Hogan's idea. And by the way, Hulk Hogan did have creative control. Bischoff also claimed that he and Hogan had no idea that Booker T was going to win the title.
And also remember doing that as well, Russo was ruled out because they called, remember Bischoff called Brad Siegel.
Yeah.
The head of TNT at the time.
And Eric recalled Brad Siegel telling him, go with Eric's idea.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like I said before, man, Vince Russo, he's not really particularly well liked around the wrestling industry. Let's just leave it at that. The only people that really have said positive things about him, Booker T, of course, because at the moment, Mick Foley. I mean, it's hard to say anything negative about Mick Foley. He's like the nicest guy in the wrestling business. Even Jim Cornette has admitted it. But when I look at WCW, and you had talent, tremendous talent, and the fact that you were unable to maximize it and fail, I mean, damn, man. And Eric Bischoff, he was with the older guys, the Hogans, the Flairs. Vince Russo was with more of the younger guys. You had an embarrassment amount of talent. And Bret Hart, he did an interview with Stone Cold Steve Austin on Broken Skull sessions. He actually said, you know what? You know who told me about how WCW is? You. Because don't go there. A lot of people talked about don't go to WCW. They're the dumbest imbeciles. They don't know exactly what the hell they're doing. And Bret Hart even admitted that his tire spun out from the time he arrived until the moment his career ended.
Hey, I gotta say this, man. Look, for you to not utilize Bret Hart and you to not, the biggest injustice in wrestling history was you not putting Bret Hart in the ring with Hulk Hogan.
Whew. That is a travesty.
The new generation versus the golden age, a match that we had yet to see. That was the biggest injustice that you ever did. Another huge injustice that you did is that you didn't put Sting in the ring with Bret Hart to defend the title the very next month. That should have been the very next guy because he was the referee during that match. So huge, big injustices that you did not once but twice. Because guess what? You could have still been beating them in the ratings right there. Hogan versus Bret Hart. The history was there. Him not wanting to, rumored, not wanting to pass the torch to Bret Hart in WWE. Instead, opting to go with Yokozuna. That was the rumor, but rumors are like peanut butter. Everybody has them. But
what's wrong with peanut butter?
I can't say. Look, I'm not going to use profanity on your show. I had to use another term. But
you allergic to peanut butter or something?
No, I eat about a ton of fools. But let me get my point. I'm sorry. But for you not to put Bret Hart in the same ring as Hulk Hogan, big injustice. For you not to put Sting at the height of his career in the ring with Bret Hart, another injustice. There were so many matches that you could have had with Bret Hart. You could have utilized him very, very strongly as far as storyline. There were so many guys in WCW that he could have worked with. Hell, you could have reignited the Lex Luger versus Bret Hart feud. Because remember, Bret Hart beat Yokozuna, whereas Lex Luger didn't.
Yeah.
The Lex Express did not succeed. So there are so many storylines that you could have made with Bret Hart there. I mean, mainly with Hulk Hogan and Bret Hart. You could have put Bret Hart over in WCW almost immediately. And you could have did it at Super Brawl.
Yeah.
You could have did it at Super Brawl the very next year. Instead, Bret Hart ends up fighting Booker T at a time where he wasn't as over for the World Television Championship. And unfortunately, the whole match ends in a schmoz. So,
a lot of things. All right, let's read some comments in the comment section below. Shout out to my man Casual, Star Bench and Cut, T-Mac, Dominique Wilkins, Paul Pierce. Casual, unfortunately, we may not have enough time to do that, but we'll probably save that for next week. I'll see what I can do on that. Also, got some other comments from my man Aiden. Long time no see, guys. How y'all doing? Shout out to Aiden. Go check out his content. Good brother. And last but not least, music. Favorite LL Cool J song. BRF, you go first.
Favorite LL Cool J song. Gotta say, LL's an underappreciated artist. Very underappreciated artist. I think I don't know. I guess some of the bros or whatnot kind of got turned away from him because he got to a point in his career where he was just the love songs, ladies love Cool James, that's what he was about. But the man made good records. You can't take away from the fact that the man did his thing. I feel like he's one of the most underappreciated rappers of any generation. If I had to, my favorite LL song, it's hard because I have a lot of good ones. My favorite LL song is probably honestly it's a tie. It's between "Hey Lover" with Boyz II Men.
Good one.
And Lounging with Total. It's between
God
one of those two.
You stole my idea.
It's between one of those two. I mean, for me, with songs like that, it's about the beat, and it's just about how they're timeless, man. They're timeless records, and I have. I mean, we all got plenty of them that we probably gonna honorably mention at some point. I mean, I feel like one of his most underrated tracks is Headstrong. Headsprung is one of his most underrated records. But yeah, for me, it's "Hey Lover" or it's "Lounging." Those are like my two favorite LL tracks. But I will go if I had to go one over the other one. I would go. I might shock you. I'm gonna go "Lounging" over "Hey Lover." I just let a beat to the song. The beat's timeless.
Hey, I can't be mad at you with that, BRF, especially around in the summertime, because that's the type of song cats want to listen to in the summertime, man. Ain't nothing better than good 90s music, man.
Exactly. That's something like you out and about, you ride. I mean, you in your car, you riding. I mean, you don't necessarily need like some hard thumping, bass track going. Something smooth like that, especially going on a long trip. Keep you woke, keep you grooving. Yeah. Most definitely at the barbecue, at the cookout. Most definitely.
Yeah, no question.
Most definitely.
Really? Yeah.
Most definitely.
Champ.
Hey, I'll never forget. Y'all sound like when y'all say most definitely. When G Money said when he was on the phone, Brown in New Jack City. You think he's legit? Like most definitely, most definitely, most definitely. But man, look, I'm gonna go in a different direction. Two of the hardest songs that LL did, man, that really I used to go to the gym back in my amateur days, and I used to listen to these songs, man. It would have to be 4-3-2-1.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that will have to be 4-3-2-1. And my thing is, man, it was so much talent on that song. It was and the original song was longer than the one they put out. Because remember the original song, you from down south, BRS. The original one had Master P on it.
Yes.
The original one had Master P on it as well. So shout out to Master P. So, and that was good to see him on an LL song, and that that introduced him outside of the down south, outside of us down south, to a worldwide audience. Him being on 4-3-2-1, so that was a huge record. I mean, not only that, it started one of the biggest beefs in hip hop, man. So between him and Cannabis, so 4-3-2-1 definitely one of my favorite songs by LL, man. And I Shot You remix.
Mm-hmm.
That was great. You need a hit, give me an hour plus a pen and a pad. So I mean, and that was so, and the way he was spitting, and the reason I put the remix on there, another case of him having a star-studded cast with him, introducing a lot of brand new artists. Foxy Brown was on that track, Fat Joe was on that track, Mobb Deep was on that track, then LL himself, man. So 4-3-2-1, I Shot You. Honorable mention, I have to say, TYPE, TYPE, GUI. I'm that type of guy. I'm that type of guy. I love that song for a lot of reasons.
Let's not forget GOAT.
Yeah, let's not forget GOAT, man. Man, that was I know we're not talking about features, but I think that was his song, man. Fatty Girl was I really like that one too.
What about the remix of Flavor in Your Ear? His verse on Flavor in Your Ear.
Yeah, but never mind. But but I like that one too, man. But not to mention, man, LL made me want to wear FUBU, man.
Whew. He was
LL made me want to wear FUBU. I mean, I cannot. If you want to talk about hip hop, you cannot underestimate what LL did for the culture. And I hate that term, as do it for the culture, but we cannot underestimate, man, for him to advertise FUBU on a Gap commercial is monumental. Because he's really rapping about FUBU on a Gap commercial. And what's so ironic about that, I never forget, the owner of FUBU said people was running to Gap seeing if FUBU was there. So, man, he made me want to put on the Fat Albert clothing, the Muhammad Ali clothing, the Globetrotters jersey. I wanted to be like LL when I was growing up. Now, obviously a lot of reasons prevented that. So, but a lot of things prevented that. But I was, I wanted to be LL growing up. The cool guy wearing the Kango, man, blasting the radio, man. Able to able to be a sex symbol on there in his time, not to mention being one of the greatest MCs of all time, being a pioneer, man. He never went out of style, to be honest with you. Even to this day, man. A LL Cool J album comes out, I have to go get it. And for him to, from the first time I ever heard him on Going Back to Cali, that was special as well. So, man, LL, man, one of the biggest icons in hip hop, if not the biggest, man. LL, you may not ever see this, but thank you for making my childhood better, man. I rocked a lot of FUBU because of you, man. I salute you.
I will definitely clip that part. And trust me, I'm quite sure he'll thank you. Some of my
Yeah.
favorite LL Cool J tracks, Ain't Nobody, from one of his albums, Mr. Smith. That was a hell of an album in 96. Of course, with one of the tracks that BRF stole from me, the remix of Loungin' featuring Toto. That was a hell of a track. Let's not forget Mama Said Knock You Out. Let's not forget I'm Bad. Let's not forget one of my favorite smooth songs from LL. I want a girl with extensions in the hair, bamboo earrings, at least 2 pair, a Fendi bag, and a bad attitude. That's all I need to keep me in a good mood. Around the way, girl.
Yes.
Also, Love You Better. I love that track, Love You Better. That was a heck of a track in the 0203. And also him with Jennifer Lopez, All I Have, back in 2002. But LL, man, I mean, ladies, they didn't go. Ladies love Cool James. They didn't call him that for a reason. They didn't call him that for a reason. He was smooth with the ladies. I mean, his personality. I mean, he had some hits, man. He was fun. To your point, champ, about the FUBU. A lot of people were
Yeah.
rocking FUBU because of him.
LL.
And also too, he had also in the house. He was also trying to do some different things with the acting part, but oh, we forgot one song. Doing it and doing it and doing it. Wow, I
Yeah.
represent Queen. She was raised
You
out
raised
of
out of
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn. Yeah.
Yeah, you can never go wrong with that one.
You
Yeah.
can't.
But
I
then
mean,
they came out and did it again with Imagine That on the GOAT album, man, because I never forget the GOAT album, man. That song was doing it part two, what I like to call it, on Imagine That, and they got a hell of a lot more vulgar on that one. But that one was good as well, man. I mean, man, only thing I hate back then is I couldn't afford that velour suit he had on. You know, the baby blue velour suit with all the Fat Albert characters on the back and the original FUBU symbol on the sleeve. I couldn't, because I think that suit cost, I mean, even back then that suit cost like $400, was it, VRF? It was
It was something like that.
Yeah, that was, I mean, because I went to the store, you know, I was working at McDonald's back then before I joined the Army. So I went to the store in order to buy that. I see, and you know, back then when they hung it high on the rack, you know, it was expensive as hell. So I mean, only thing I hate about that era, I did not get a chance to wear that suit because as you know, the Space Jams, the Baby Blue Space Jams had just came out. I had just bought them. So, and the thing is, I said, I'm gonna set, you know, the talent show in Columbus was that night. I said, I'm gonna set this off by going to get that velour suit. I'm gonna be the only one with it. And I got up there, that velour suit was kind of out of reach, man. But man, LL, man, like I said, man, made me want to wear FUBU, man. Made me want to not to mention, man, gotta confess, man, LL made me want to get in the gym. You know what I'm saying? Not just because of football, but because I wanted to be that smooth. You know what I'm saying? You wanted to be that smooth. You wanted to be the guy. You wanted to be that dude, you know, with the muscles out and, you know, you charming the ladies and stuff like that. You wanted to be that dude, man. You know, people talk about Arnold Schwarzenegger influencing them to get in the gym. LL influenced me to get in the gym, man. Because it's just like, man, you know, I could be like that, man. I want to be able to wear my shirt open like that, you know, or go in the bar like that, rather than, you know, hey, you know what it is. But
we know.
Yeah. So, hey, man, LL, man, thank you, man. You made me want to work out. You made me want to be cool. You made me want to wear FUBU, man. And I wanted to be like LL, man. So, you know, being cool with the drop top, man, that was special, man. PSP, the New Jersey Genius, man. Good job, man. I mean, I cannot explain, man. Listening to LL with my father, you know, driving down the street, wanting to wear the FUBU, be the cool guy on the block. You know, that was cool, man. I wish I would have had one of them furry Kangos too, because he definitely put Kangos on the map, man. Let's not forget the troop suits too, man. Before he was wearing FUBU, he was wearing them troop suits. You know, even and you know back then, you know, I couldn't afford the troop suits. That was like $400 back then. But the troop suits were some serious too, man. So definitely a culture icon, man. Definitely.
All right, fellas, one last one, and we're gonna wrap this one up. Father's Day. By the way, happy Father's Day to everyone out there, whether you're a biological father or not. As Champ mentioned, happy Father's Day. Whether you're a father figure, whatever it is, man, happy Father's Day. Thank you for all the help, the mentorship, the love you give to whether the son, daughter, or whoever in your life. Thank you. Just like for the mothers, we want to thank you as well. A lot of great fathers, a lot of good people out here. Father's Day moment, and I was talking with Champ. One of my favorite Father's Day moments, not in my personal life, it was the television show. Remember Fresh Prince of Bel-Air? Papa's Got a Brand New Excuse? The episode when Will Smith saw Lou, his father, portrayed by the great Ben Vereen. And at the end of the episode, just when Will thought he was going to go on a trip with Lou for the rest of the summer, Lou, as usual, back then, and as usual, deserts his son. And my favorite moment was with Will, James Avery, Ben Vereen. How Will Smith, I mean, that was magnificent on the part of Will Smith. And he explained it. When he was trying to do the scene, he was yelling. He was like, I don't want to use the term, but then James Avery, rest his soul, is like, hey, use me, get it together, action. And then when Will Smith did the scene with James Avery, and when they started hugging, James Avery whispered in Will Smith's ear, and he's like, now that's acting. That's acting. And Will Smith is still crying. Like, man, my God, that is still one of like my favorite like Father's Day moments, or like any episode regarding like fathers. That was like really touching. And of course, another one, Family Matters, Champ. Remember Carl Winslow when he confronted the two police officers who stopped Eddie?
Yeah. Yeah, and that was a show way before his time, man. I mean, for him to be a law enforcement officer and confronting two about an injustice that happened to his son. And, you know, he was right in accusing Eddie of, you know, not doing what he's supposed to. Because, you know, if you really look at Family Matters, Eddie had a bad habit of getting into some stuff. You know, it's kind of like the NWA song. He was always into something. So when he came back and told him that, and finally Officer Winslow got to the bottom of it and told him, hey, I'm surprised you're able to wear that badge because it's attached to slime. That was a very, very epic moment, man. And I mean, you can't buy those moments. And one moment for Carl Winslow that I can definitely relate to when he caught Eddie drinking again and say, hey, I catch you drinking again, you up out of this house. And he came in there one more time, just drunk as cooter. And he just was just like, and he said, hey, you might as well just get some rest because in the morning you up out of here, bro. That's just, you know, that's that tough love that a father gives to his son, man. Shout out to my father because I had those moments with my father. So, you know, hey, you know, you sober up real quick when your dad asks you if you drunk or not. You try to straighten up real quick. So, man, big shout out to all the fathers out there, man, especially the TV dads. And let's not forget about James Evans, man, on Good Times, one of the big strong father figures in television as well, man.
Whew. Yeah, can't forget that. BRF.
Well, I'm gonna go. I know I'm the theme of the podcast. I'm gonna go to Sports Row because this one Well, I mean, obviously, I mean, if we're going personal, my daughter was born April 28, 2015. Father's Day is basically a month and 16 days later. So I mean, it's like your first Father's Day as a dad is something you can never you can never not just cherish and take with you for the rest of your days. So that's obviously for me from a personal standpoint. But I'm gonna go a sports route because this one I'll always remember when the Bulls beat the Sonics to win the NBA championship,
Oh
and that
yeah.
was Michael Jordan's first title since his father was murdered. And you could see and the shot of him laying in the locker room holding the basketball, basically just letting every piece of emotion out that he could. And it was just one of those moments that's just like somebody like me who idolized Michael Jordan, who just felt like he was like untouchable, invincible, and just seeing him let out that type of emotion to remind you that he's still a real human being too, and he still has his emotions too. It kind of it gives you a new appreciation for a man like him who lost his father the way he did, and it was just something that I still remember that just because like I was like the growing up I was like the biggest I was like one of the biggest Chicago Bulls fans, and just you wanted to cry for him because you can't because I I still I still have my father. My father just turned my father just turned 62 on April 16th, and it's one of those things that you can't truly relate to it if you haven't lost your father, but you can feel his pain with him because you know how that's going to feel when it happens to you, and it's just one of those things where it's just like you want to just you wish you could have been there for him, and it's just you wish you could have like put a hand on the shoulder, just letting him know his daddy would have been proud of him to be able to come back, to come back from the retirement and to win that first championship. Just to remind him that your daddy would have been proud of you because you doing what you're doing, and you're being successful. You're being who you are, and just it. That's one of those moments that really like get to me. And another quick one, if I'm correct, Ken Griffey Jr. hit his 500th home run on Father's Day in St. Louis with his daddy in attendance, if I'm correct. So those are two moments that really, sports wise, that really kind of, if you want to talk about the beauty and the magic of sports, like from a way to kind of pull you in, to kind of pull you in with one player, but also it's just every emotion wrapped up. So if there were two Father's Day moments that stand out to me from a sports perspective, it would be those two.
Hmm. Man, great show, fellas. Any final comments before we wrap up the air?
Um, thank you, PSP. Uh, thank you for always inviting us, man. Like I always say, man, the highlight of Friday nights, always a privilege, a pleasure, and an honor. I appreciate everything, man. And thanks for putting us all on and giving us a platform. So we appreciate you, man. Keep doing what you're doing. Congratulations on almost you getting up there to almost 7,000, man. And so I'm grateful to have been a part of the movement, man. I'm thankful for you putting me on, and I'm thankful to be a part of everything, man. But you're doing a hell of a job. I commend you. I salute you, man. Keep up the good work, man. We salute you, man. Shout out to Columbus, Georgia, by the way.
Yes, good food too. If you want to stop for some good food, stop at Columbus, Georgia, and tell them where to follow you at as well, my man.
Hey, Undisputed World Champ on TikTok, man. Undisputed Goat Podcast. Had a good time last night with PSP and BRF. Shot the Flash as well. Had a hell of a show. We will be back next week, man. Um, and I'll also make sure you tune in to not only PSP's YouTube, but also pay attention to his TikTok and his Instagram as well, man. A lot of collaborations that he does on those as well, man. Not to mention introducing a lot of talent such as myself and BRF and a lot of other guys. So make sure you pay attention to the Instagram page as well, man. A lot of collaborations, man. Can't thank you enough, bro.
Anytime, man. Thank you. And BRF, final comments and tell them where to follow you at, my man.
Well, I mean, I gotta echo the sentiments, man. It's always the best experience. One of the best experiences, like getting on here and being able to talk sports with y'all, man. I feel y'all like y'all already like brothers to me, man. In this movement, man. I mean, it's just this is the beauty of sports right here. This is the beauty of sports talk. When you get three guys who we're not in the same town, but it don't matter at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, we brothers in this movement, and we want to take it somewhere. And like the way you put Champ on, Champ put me on with the TikTok lives after every Sunday NFL slate, and we still riding and we still rolling. It's a pleasure to being on here with you, doing what we do best. I got it. Let me go. I'm gonna plug them real quick. At BRS Sports is the TikTok handle. The link tree in the bio. Big Sugar 1122. TikTok, IG, Facebook, Twitter on my main four. Click the link. Show me some love. I appreciate all the support I've gotten. This recent kind of just. I feel like momentum for my page, but I mean I wouldn't have it if I didn't have great people giving me a platform to do what I enjoy doing, and it's always a pleasure getting on here. And I gotta end it with my motto. I gotta end it with my saying, because no true words are gonna be spoken, because a topic not thought about is a topic not talked about. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean it is what it is, and we're just gonna keep riding. We're gonna keep leading this movement as far as we can take it. Sports PSP, shout out to you, man. Continued success for you, because I follow you. I pretty much follow pretty much everything you're doing at this point, and all the good is going to continue to come your way. And Champ, same for you, brother. All the good going to come your way as well. And we just going to keep riding this movement out, and we going to lead it the best we can.
Absolutely. We're going to continue to keep doing what we can do. Stay tuned for the Sports PSP podcast next week. We may do some more interesting stuff. Next week, we will do favorite Martin Lawrence moment. Stay tuned for next week. Also, stay tuned for some other music and other sports news as well. I'll let y'all know for next week. But anyway, y'all know exactly where to follow me at Sports PSP. Please go like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, as well as IG Sports PSP, as well as TikTok Sports PSP3. I appreciate Undisputed World Champ and BRF taking the time to do the podcast as well. To all the fathers out there, to all the men out there, happy Father's Day. Families, do whatever you can to say thank you to your fathers. Thank you to all the men who've made the sacrifices to be there with the families. Also, want to say happy Father's Day to my father and also to my stepfather as well, for helping me as a man and for helping me get opportunities in life and letting me know that you can do anything as long as you're willing to put in the work. Also, I want to give love to Mama PSP for doing everything that she can for me. Thank you, Mama. And also, thank you to the family. Thank you to everyone in New Jersey. Also, give shout outs to all the other content creators. Brandon from the block. I'm Ghost Media. We're definitely going to have Ghost Media back on. Broad, Kieran, Luis, Certified Chris, Hot Take Kenny, Maria, Casual, Harrison. Y'all enjoy the rest of y'all Saturday and rest of the weekend. And we is out. Peace.